Three. Bam, that's going. Bam, that's it. So this is Circa Kraft podcast. What's up, man? And then
How's
I
it
have
going?
awesome guests that I've been like, so man, so in terms of brands and companies that have always been a placeholder, like always had a high respect for Modern Icon. And I've told you multiple times in terms of like branding and naming,
Yeah.
one of my favorite names. I mean, you could really go in different directions in terms of like company, but Modern Icon, I just always thought, man,
That's
that is such
awesome.
a badass name.
Yeah.
Like I think of like Supreme and then like, just other big, like, whatever it be, designer brands. And then, but Modern Icon, like I was like, man, that is such a fucking killer name. It
Thank
just
you.
fits so well. So
Yeah.
I will let you introduce yourself
Yeah. Yeah.
and kind of give you a little background, and then we'll do a couple of little quick lightning, quick questions, and then we'll
Yeah.
just dive head first,
I
man. So
definitely
go
have to
ahead.
tell you about the name too then. We
Yeah.
have to come back to that because it's kind of a funny
Yeah.
story.
Absolutely. So
Yeah, so my name is Lee and I'm the founder, owner of Modern Icon, product designer for Modern Icon, started in my basement when I was a full-time LEO. And yeah, I've been doing it since 2012.
2012, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to believe too. So I'm thinking, man, it's crazy. I graduated high school in 2010, and just to
I'm
think,
also old.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm telling you, man, like it's starting to like catch me, like realizing I'll talk
Yeah.
to like my brother, and then it catches me how old that I've gotten, and it's like, even like I think it was the other day, buddy was talking. He's like, yeah, this is my favorite album that got me through high school, and then it was like the release date of the album was like 2017,
You're
and I
like,
was
dude,
like.
you're what?
And I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I
bro, I'm
graduated
old.
college, and I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
years away, and I'm like, damn, man.
Oh yeah, I'm old.
Yeah, but very awesome. And so
Yeah.
obviously K9 has been just a focal point for you for quite some time.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean we're located out of Taylor's Mill in Taylor, South
Yeah.
Carolina. Live in Greenville, and yeah, in a 500 square foot tiny
Yeah.
house out in
Well,
the country and
yeah.
doing
So
the thing.
that was always a big thing to me too, was when I found out and so shout out to I'll give props to Adam Hadari, which was someone I long time ago worked with, and awesome guy and just super motivated, but also he was someone who really changed my outlook and aspect on canines. But
Mhm.
I say that to say like one of the big things was he loved y'all's gear. And so that
That's
he was the
awesome.
first person who introduced me
Yeah.
to Modern Icon.
Thank you,
And
Adam.
like, yeah, Adam, I'll have to tag him. He's a super good dude. He's down in Charleston still. And then also had another friend who was, I think he was, can't remember his exact title at the time, but he worked as district attorney with Lexington. And then same thing. Um, I remember talking to him. I was like, what collar did you like? What did you get?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I got it from Modern Icon.
Right on.
And so like, shout out to Gil. Gil is like one of my he's also my lawyer still. So
It's awesome.
yeah, shout out to Gil. So
Get it,
props, get a Gil. Yeah, but he's an awesome dude and loves you guys too. So, but anyways, before we dive head first, just
Yeah.
a bunch of cool questions, and like
Yeah.
this just so many different things.
Yeah, it can go
And
in
we've
lots of
chatted a little
directions.
bit, and, enjoyed. Finally, I get someone who can, have a little bourbon with beforehand.
Yeah, it's really good.
And, so it's been a really fun, just chatting and bantering.
Yeah.
So, quick lightning questions. And of course,
Yeah.
I try to have something that's a little off topic, and there'll be one that's kind of
Okay.
on cue with canines. And then
Okay.
but the rest of them are just off the wall.
Let's see how I can do.
Yeah. So, you have an unlimited supply of one thing. What would it be?
Oh,
Lifelong.
gosh.
And we'll avoid like the easy, like money, whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that would have been easy because then I
I
could
know.
grab
Yeah.
pretty much
That's
everything
what I
else.
would say. Yeah.
Unlimited supply of. That's a tough
We'll
one.
say let's like
What's something-
we'll say sweet treats or something like that.
Yeah.
Just to make it a little more focused.
Okay,
A little
yeah, that'll
focused.
be easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be my guilty obsession when I'm on any road trip. I have to have a ice cream Snickers bar.
Those are really good. They're underrated.
I would just have
underrated.
Yeah, I'd be morbidly obese, but
Yeah.
that'd be my
Yeah.
wish. Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Can I get a 0-calorie version of it? Can I make
Yeah.
this like a fantasy and like it'd just be no weight added?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy too, because I remember like I think the last time I had one, I love Snicker bar. Like I think in terms of candy bars,
It's the
Snicker bars
best.
are like
It's got
my
everything
favorite.
you need. Yeah.
And I remember like going to a gas station, and as I'm checking out, they have like a little fridge next to it.
That's
and
it gets me every time. It gets me
I
every
was like,
time.
I was like, man, I haven't had one of those in forever.
Yeah.
And I just grabbed one. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and I don't think anyone even knew. It was like,
I have
I'm
no
not even gonna
regrets.
tell anybody.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna
yeah,
drive
yeah.
home, from dropping
No
orders
regrets.
off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, I hear you on that one for sure. I think I'm right there with you. I think like, man, I'm trying to think because it balances out. I think for me, maybe like,
Ammo.
well, if I was doing sweet treats, I would
yeah,
say
sweet
like,
treats.
yeah, I mean like, and I have a good buddy, so like we'll play games, and like at night he's like, all right, I'll be right back. Gotta get a sweet treat. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. Man, it's tough because I'm thinking about it. Maybe like Sour Patch Kids of some sort, or like I don't know, man. It's kind of tough. Like I don't know, but I'm kind of right there. I guess I would say the easiest probably Snicker bars because that is like my go-to like candy bar if I
Yeah.
want something that has like that
Yeah.
good balance, dude. It's
It's got
perfectly
the
balanced.
caramel, the nougat.
Yeah.
They got the protein in there.
Yeah, man.
Chocolate.
It's
What else
like
do you need?
freaking Thanos, dude. Like perfectly
Yeah.
balanced, dude. Like the world is at
Yeah.
peace. So everything else is kind of like too
That's
much of
it.
this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I can have this
Exactly.
like once a month or whatever. But anyways, also next question. According to you, what is the most mind-numbing dull movie? And I could say like in terms of like popularity, like maybe a movie that's really popular, but you
Mm.
find mind-numbing, like mind-numbingly boring.
Oh, my wife will hate me saying this, but The Notebook.
Notebook, yeah,
Everybody
yeah,
loves that. I guess
I'm with you on
it's
that
like
one.
the
I can
women's
agree.
favorite movie.
It is, yeah. But I say it's the popular
I just like to
romantic.
cry.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of one that's like
Super hyped. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, it was nothing sandwich.
yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, I'm pretty good. There's like some movies that are one and dones that I'll
Yeah.
watch, then they may be good, but I'll never
Probably,
watch them
probably
again.
plenty of movies that this gentleman was in.
Don't say that, dude. No,
Oh,
no, no,
sorry,
no.
sorry.
Con Air,
Okay,
Con Air
sorry.
was a masterpiece.
Sorry.
Fast and Furious.
Don't listen.
All right, let's go. I'm trying to think. Maybe like, this sounds messy. Maybe like the Green Mile, like the Shawshank Redemption. Like,
yeah.
I'm not saying they're not bad, but it's just like I watched it and like I can't watch it ever. I never watch it again.
You watch it once,
I'm
and
done.
that's got to be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I feel like
It's more of like being just scarred for life from watching a movie. It's like I can only take so many of these.
and that would have been a better question. Is there a movie that has scarred you for life? Is there like one scene or a movie
Just
that
can't watch ever
Yeah.
again. I mean, I'm like that on like a lot of the like slasher
Yeah.
horror movies,
Yeah.
like the psychological
Mhm.
type thrillers. What was
I have two movies on top of my head.
there was one that I like watched that I'm like, I don't know that I'm gonna be okay after watching it. It wasn't like necessarily too gruesome, but it was Annihilation. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It has
was
a
like, it just
phenomenal
messed with
sound as well.
I thought it was an incredible movie. I just was like, yeah, I don't know, like I'm gonna look at my fingerprints and my fingerprints are gonna
Yeah.
start like swirling and I'm
Yeah,
questioning reality.
tripped out,
Am I
yeah.
really me or
So there's two movies that are kind of similar. I'm pretty sure it's like Annihilation. There's another movie that was semi like had the same vibe to it, but
Yeah.
Annihilation, if it's the one I'm 99% sure. The actual like sound and the soundtrack and whoever
Yeah.
did like the composing it, they did a phenomenal job. And then like this it makes you feel so uneasy the entire time.
yeah.
And I like had like I built like a playlist one time of like different exposures from different movies and stuff, and that one popped up as
Mhm.
a popular one. And dude, man, it just made you feel like just
Yeah.
uncomfortable and like but it's phenomenal. Like, and the sounds are so distinct as well. If it's, I'm 99% sure is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I would say I'll tell you one scene because I'm planning on rewatching it soon. Is Saving Private Ryan, and it's that one scene at the end with the stabbing. And dude,
Oh yeah.
that is
it's
so,
like so slow and so intimate and so
gosh,
like
man,
tense.
it is so.
Yeah.
I think I've watched it entirely, and I've watched Saving Private Ryan numerous times, but
Yeah.
that scene I have to skip it. It is so. I just have to get like past it.
Yeah.
20 seconds. I'm like, man, that is just devastating.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
That there's definitely scenes in Black Hawk Down that just like make me so furiously angry.
Totally.
And then Signs. I'll do like a Signs. Like,
On
dude,
Signs.
dude. Growing up, I watched that one. That like instilled like I think a fear, like
Yeah.
a natural fear. Like that
Yeah.
one scene, man. Like looking under the door. I'm like, oh, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, you know not
Please
to.
don't look into
Please,
this.
why would you?
Please don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So spoiler alert. These are older movies. If you haven't seen them,
if
then,
you haven't seen them,
tough
shame
shit,
on you.
dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, let's whatever. Anyways, though, but yeah, good stuff. And then we'll do a final one. This one will be a little more canine related.
Okay.
If your dog was on a dating app, what would their bio say? Any red flags? Anything crazy? Or
yeah, no red flags.
Yeah.
I would just say like it would be probably too honest
yeah,
and too like vulnerable.
yeah, personable.
Yeah, I mean he's a bit of a pretty boy,
Yeah,
so it'd be like long walks on the beach.
yeah,
Chasing my favorite ball,
Yeah.
walking around with my owner's sock in its mouth.
Yeah,
Like weird because it likes the scent,
yeah,
kind of thing. So kind of like a slight creeper vibe.
yeah,
So maybe that would be the red flag.
Yeah.
But then like super soft and in touch with his
Hey.
emotions. But if he needs to, and that switch gets flipped, it will take your arm off.
Take your soul. Yeah.
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 So,
Nothing wrong with that.
I don't know. That would be, I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
who
pretty
would be
good.
attracting.
Yeah.
I doubt. I mean, poodles can be kind of vicious, right?
But
So
underrated,
maybe some
underrated breed.
poodle.
Yeah. Let's say,
maybe a poodle or something like different breeds would come and come knocking, but swipe
Hell yeah.
right or left or whatever direction is.
yeah. Awesome. Well, let's say,
Yeah.
again, like I'm trying to think, Gatsby is can be a nutcase. He's just all over the place sometimes. I'm trying to think. I think one question I would always ask, like, what's like a walk up song or whatever,
Yeah.
and I'm like, man, that's a tough one because I'm like, be something either like super just aggressive like EDM or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
You never know. But the dating app, that's pretty funny. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's
I
what
do
think.
like that. It's good.
Max,
That's a good
good old
balance,
Max.
man. It's
Yeah.
a good balance. But yeah. So getting into it. So in terms, so canine gear, all the stuff, and again, even before, like I've and used, and it's like my primary stuff. So like harnesses. My first harness was a Modern Icon harness. It was perfect. And for me, I'm not law enforcement, military. I don't need something crazy. So I was always pretty much minimalist, but I did like something squared. And again, like there is some type of level of pride too. So, you go online, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but there's different brands and companies that you can get something at half the cost, whatever, Amazon. But in terms of quality and like, I don't know, there's just something to be said about that, So like, getting this one, this is pretty standard. Got this for Jezza Jace. He pops up occasionally. We got this for just, hiking walks, stuff like that. And he is a big boy, but we liked it because just one, you had this big ring in the front and then the actual harness is there. And, don't always have to utilize it, but it's nice to have it. And then, just little things. And then of course, all the different leads and, quick, fast leads.
Traffic lead.
Yeah, traffic lead. So this is like my favorite one. Like, just
it's a good go-to.
Yeah, because for me, it's just like it's right there, especially on trails. It's just right there, immediate. Any type of like just quick
Gives
correction.
You good, positive
absolutely.
control.
And then same thing, showing this one. It's like I have a little bit more slack, get a little more room, but I have this right there. For the same reason for the patrol. But
it's a close control handle.
Yeah, but
just to tell you the story behind. There's a story behind all the products. But.
Absolutely, and of course, the standard, and of course, like this, and then it have a prong, but as well, but having something that won't slip off, because he is when we first got him, man, he just is a squirmer. So like he can really something he wasn't really comfortable doing. He would back up really quickly, and like some collars just right off, And so having something like this, where it actually has like that actual firmness underneath it. Preventative, you have a little bit more stability and stuff, but, of course, and then little G on there. So that's always been our favorite
awesome.
Tune.
Yeah. Well, okay.
So,
do you want me to tell you about the name first though?
Yeah. Let's, because
that's a whole crazy story. Yeah. We're going to start from the beginning. I'm checking my watch because I don't want to like blow through your timeline.
No, you're good, man. You're good.
So I would say the craziest thing that really not a lot of people know, I'll share things on here that nobody really knows.
Really?
So
I'm even more excited. Yeah.
So people don't really understand that because I don't actually share it with people.
Sure.
That Modern Icon wasn't actually supposed to be a manufacturing company. It's going to be a training company.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So I have kind of a strange. I don't know how to say it without it sounding weird. Experiences that I have in my life that are like kind of metaphysical. Like seeing visions and things have happened since I was like 12.
Really? Okay.
So we could probably talk more about that, but it's one of my strange oddities.
So when you say something like that, is that like envisioning of what you like? So
seeing of the future.
Yeah, like having an envisioning what you expect or what you want from life, or
I guess you can do that. That would be considered manifesting. So that's in a different category, which I could talk to you about.
Okay.
So this came as a spontaneous thing. And the vision played out as if you're watching a movie, or like imagine if I say, hey, imagine, and don't close your eyes, but imagine an elephant. You can still, be looking around and like see the image of an elephant, right? And you can imagine an elephant, you can imagine him sitting in a room, whatever. Yeah. So that's the way that the vision came. And so I saw it is a long story. So I'll like,
go for it, man.
I'll try and cut it. I'll give you the semi-abbreviated
Do what you gotta do.
But there are three of the men in my life that were my top mentors growing up that I respected the most and I learned the most from. My father, who was just like a serial entrepreneur, salt of the earth, the kind of guy that can make anything out of anything. He's an Armenian American. So an Armenian came to America when he was 16.
So you're first generation.
Yeah, Armenian American. He married a woman from my mom, who's from Pennsylvania. So So anyways, my dad, my grandpa on my mom's side, and then my great uncle Billy on my mom's side. And my grandpa, I could talk about him because that's part of the kind of design influence. But he was
Sure.
an engineer, and then my great uncle Billy was like the outdoorsman. So he taught me about shooting, hunting, camping, all fishing, all these like manly type of
Yeah.
things. But they were the people that I kind of idolized. And so when my uncle Billy passed, I inherited his camping and hunting gear, camping, hunting, fishing gear, and all the equipment. So I'm go to Pennsylvania. It's from Pennsylvania. I'm driving back to Greenville with all the stuff in the back of my car. It's emotional, like, the whole thing.
Sure.
But like the crazy thing is that all the equipment that he has, it was made locally. So like Pennsylvania has a lot of steel mills and stuff. So like, the thing that you put your fish in after you caught it, little can,
Hmm.
you put in the water and so you get ready to go home kind of thing. Like that was made in Pittsburgh. It's like things were made locally to the
Right.
person that bought it, which we talked earlier about, trying to find and source things even
Right.
within the state. So he found almost everything is made in Pennsylvania.
Very
And
prideful. Yeah.
yeah, and it was made to last, and it did. So like I'm inheriting all these things that are as good as new. And so I'm driving back home. I'm like thinking about what that means. The other thing that kind of hit me was like not a lot of people, really nobody else in my family had taken the time to learn the things that this person had to share. I had to pursue him, very quiet, B-17 bomber pilot in World War II. But never knew that until
Yeah.
like I kind of forced him to go through the photo album and he brought these things up. But like that's that level of humility, but and confidence that he kind of had and exuded. So I'm driving back and I have this open vision and I see a series of kind of like adverts that played out. And then the name Modern Icon and the slogan, the modern evolution of the iconic arts, bringing Americans back to the iconic status they once held generations ago, symbols of hope, freedom, and independence. And like the idea, I was a training director at the time. So this is like pre law enforcement. And that's my background is in outdoor education. That's my degree is in that. And so I thought I was going to be creating a training company to teach people the techniques that used to be considered commonplace, but that would now be considered like craft, like camp craft is a
Yeah.
thing. Well, back then it was just being a dude. So like you could survive, you could make a lean-to, you could do all these survival prepper things is what we would call it now.
Yeah.
But back then it was just a matter of being an American and being able to
Skill
take care
set.
of yourself so that
Yeah.
you're not a liability to the community that you're part of, right? Everybody could contribute. So being an American meant something. If you're overseas and you had an American in the room and something bad happened, like everybody looked to you as a leader in that space because they know that you've got the grit, you've got the fortitude, you've got the knowledge, the know-how, the leadership skills. Like we were that back then.
Yeah.
And so the concept for it was that came with that is, I idolize Uncle Billy as an icon to me. I idolize him. So he's an idol to me. And the people of that generation, the 40s and 50s, the greatest generation, growing up, like they wanted to become doctors. They wanted to become, soldiers, police officers, nurses. They like think contributing to society. They wanted to do jobs that contributed to rather than takes away from society. And what I kind of came to realize is that nobody's really paying attention to or caring much about the police officers and the people that are doing these jobs that are kind of thankless, that are serving their communities.
Yeah.
And the way that played out that I kind of wanted to fix, was that these guys deserve the very best equipment and they were getting the worst, like
Yeah.
the lowest bidder type of
Yeah.
stuff.
And that's something that's frequent and commonplace, especially now. It's not really a matter of pace, whatever, I mean, so like that was something that I did before was it was spec sheet, whatever, and like
Mhm.
minimal requirements. And then you have to wade through and find ways to get rid of like these low bidder type stuff
Mhm.
that just undercuts or copy and paste something. And, yeah, I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you end up getting, if you don't put the effort in, you just end up with the most worst quality
Yeah.
bottom product that wins the bid. And then next thing you know, you're replacing things
Constantly.
nonstop,
Yeah.
constantly. And you're just, yeah. So there's a value in,
Yeah. Well,
creating
and that kind of goes back to the gear too then. So like when the equipment was made back then for like World War II, as an example, people would say now it's like, okay, well, mil spec means the lowest bidder got that,
Yeah.
and so like mil spec means nothing now. Well, back then mil spec meant that a person whose spouse is going to be using this piece of equipment and trusting their life to it is making it.
right.
Like that's what it used to mean. So I want to make gear, and this is what we do. So like, it's why we're so small still. Like I want to make gear one piece at a time, by hand. I mean, we're using sewing machines, but a person is touching it. It's not automated to sew and manufacture our equipment. that I know that I could count, like trust my life to, or trust the dog's life to. And that's the responsibility that I feel like we have. And I didn't see at the time that I was doing it in my basement, and I'm happy to share all the, whatever, we can go whatever direction you want with
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Origin story, whatever. But like, there's so much you can talk about, because like the
yeah.
industry stuff we talked about earlier too is like a whole deep dive.
Right, right.
But when I was making it, I started making it because there wasn't a company at the time, out of all the companies that were making the gear, that have been making it for years, that was making gear to the standard that these dogs deserved. And I was working with them, and was a police officer, seeing all these things, like the techniques that they were using, seeing the things that the dogs would be capable of, the dogs would do. I've been through dogs' funerals where they passed in the line of duty. Like, I understood what the cost was, and felt like they deserved something
A step
better
above,
than.
yeah.
Yeah. And it was just, I would say it would be the equivalent of pet quality products made for military application, which wasn't
Fails.
the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just wasn't to the standards that they needed it.
It seems like that, like in, I think it's definitely improved as of late, but I feel like the outlook for the longest time was just like a disposable type look. And so like,
Absolutely.
what happens, but, without giving, and everyone, like, the dog is like an American. So like, it even goes back to like, where, like a certain type of animal is like put into like a legacy where it cannot be touched. So like, again, like I consider like horses and like canines and stuff like that. There's like this level of cannot be, like, some countries eat horse meat, and like some, countries, I don't like saying it,
Yeah.
and, but like for us, for like the Americans, or like, just in general, like the dogs are just like a iconic piece of like Americana. They are like a part of a family household that has like this iconic feature. And of course, like that has spread. And then same thing with like, I said horses, but it's the same thing. Like, there's like this level of like, distinct animal that has reached this level.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting that like, while we sit and outfit stuff, they don't get the best as well when they're doing one of the dirtiest parts of whatever job, where it's thoughtless, it's thankless, especially with canine training and stuff. And it's evolved and changed. And like me, myself, like learning, starting off at one aspect of what, how to train and what to do with canines. And then like now it just evolves to where it's just totally different.
Yeah.
And then of course, breed, everything changes too, depending on what the dogs, there's dogs that will need a little more firm. Like we talked about earlier, like you have a dog that is like top 0.01% that is doing the jobs. And it like it requires a different type of handler versus like, Gatsby, for instance, where it's totally different aspects. But, but not giving them the best to be successful is kind of like just such a bizarre mindset when it's such an iconic piece of like, role in a family or any community, in any type of family or aspect.
Well, and there are reasons for it that will help it make sense. Neither of us will agree that they're justifiable.
Sure.
And they have changed. The industry has changed. I mean, I played my part in changing that. But the thing that they would say is, the dog's got a service life of about 6 years. He cost X amount of dollars. And so, the old school methodology, the old school, perspective was that the dog is a tool to be used rather than a person, which means that this person could go home at night if the dog dies. And so that's a potential consequence that is acceptable, an acceptable loss, and so I think that while that still is true in that, yes, we would rather this human go home than the dog. Some people would disagree. But outfitting the dogs that way, versus the human who's got family, wife and kids at home, like that is the correct call on like a tactical,
it's a tough pill to swallow. I think it's humanizing too. And then like that, and then that even goes back to even training, where realizing and having that breaking point of where a canine is still an animal at the end of the day. And you still have to instill those type of, and we won't get into training and stuff like that. That's a whole different thing. But there is and
that was the reason. So one of the reasons why, the other reason why was because, dogs don't really give feedback. And so, these dogs are bred and then trained to be able to take a beating and like literally and keep on going and not really show it. And so when the dogs are in duress, a really keen handler can tell, that their dog is off a little bit or not, having the best day, whatever, but they're really tuned in. But there's a lot that can't. And so you can make a really poor design. I mean, I'll give you an example that I think anybody listening will understand, poorly designed harness as an example is what's called an H strap harness, which has got a singular strap that goes across the chest. So if you notice, all of ours
We'll bring it up. Yeah.
have like the Y yoke, right? Oh gosh.
Oop.
So they got the Y yoke on it, right? And so that more evenly distributes the pressure on the dog, and it prevents the part that could potentially choke them out at their neck from riding up. And so with those 8-strap harnesses, they're easy to make. That's why they're being made. There's companies that still sell them, which is kind of funny. To me, too, I would probably recommend they take them out of their catalog. But what that's going to do is that's going to ride up when pressure is applied to the harness. The function of a harness is to control the dog.
Right.
That's it. So to control or move the dog in an environment, so like up or down. So for the dog's safety and security, that's the reason why you'd have it attached, to be able to connect the handler to the dog, and then also to be able to control the dog, right? So if you have a harness on a dog, then it should serve that purpose. And if you put pressure on these types of single strap harnesses, it's either going to trip the dog up by going down to its legs, or it's going to pull up and choke the dog out when you put pressure on it. So then what was the point in designing it? So that's an example of like, it just, people could sell it because the dogs aren't complaining about it.
You never know.
And also, that viewer, I'm not saying that was at some point, like the handlers, I don't know a handler who would ever view their dog as expendable. It was more of like a leadership thing. And true, like going back to like, okay, yes, like a person versus a dog now.
Right.
The cool thing that's shifted now, and, we haven't played a part, but I have friends who have helped lobby for these things to happen, is that they're enhancing the crime of killing a canine.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Florida
awesome.
just did something pretty big.
Florida, the same thing. So a company we work with, Canines United, down in Florida, is worked on that, which I think is awesome. And then so there's that. And then there's a couple other companies that we've worked with as well. And I think that it's, to me, the HICO fund up here in South Carolina, it's just everybody I think should be getting to that point where it's a national standard where killing a service dog is essentially like killing a police officer. And that's my perspective, is that they are sworn, they are an officer, they're putting their life on the line. And we see, for us and for the handlers, we see them as equals.
Yeah. Especially that bond is created, and there's like a actual very, very personal, deep relationship that's done. And, I think, absolutely. I mean, there's like, I don't know, it's definitely, especially as of late, I remember seeing something recently, and it was actually, as I mentioned, horses, but there was something where someone, I think, pushed and like, hit a horse, and like, and it turned, like the situation turned, people are complaining, and it's like, hey, you don't, like, do you understand, like, what you're doing or what you're keeping,
So that was the reason why, so up until I started basically challenging the status quo, in a way that, ironically enough, I could only have afforded to do if I didn't need to make any money, that things actually started to change within the industry, which is
disruptive.
One of those things. It's like people don't really understand that. And I'll point out some, kind of like behind the scenes insider things that you can be like, all right, he's not as full of it. Like, this is like legit. So points that things shifted.
I want to talk about more of like the vision aspect of that. And like, so and we talked about this earlier in terms of like self-made, like self-grown, like creating something starting from the bottom up. And like, so when you have like an experience like that, and I want to say that I've had a similar like mind process, and like, I will say like in a similar aspect of, growing up, having, whatever standards of like, doing this, doing that, not doing that, never, like very strict growing up, like, hey, if you get pulled over, sayonara to your driver's license, you're not driving, you're out, you get to, paying for, insurance, paying for this, paying for that. If you want to have this luxury, then you got to pay for it. And, and that was like my mindset growing up. And so it's always a mindset of like, if I wanted something, I had to work hard for it. But I also just always had this vision of expecting more of myself, where it was like, I'm just never satisfied. And so I always will have, like, I guess I would say I would envision myself doing more or doing better, or like having this like standard of living. But I've found that even when I have come close, or I've gotten something that maybe checks a box, it's never enough. It's not satisfying. It's not like a greed aspect. It's more of like challenging myself to like, I expect more of myself.
Yeah.
especially like life or like, like creating a legacy, which I think is
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah, yeah,
I
totally.
think everyone should have like this mindset of creating a legacy of themselves to pass down. So like example, like, your uncle created a legacy
Mhm.
with it without him realizing it, but he created it for you. And like that was pivotal for you to make decisions to move forward in life.
Mhm.
And so for like that, I mean, like that to me, I think is really interesting in terms of like the brain itself and however you want to look at it, I think is so unique. And I think people really, and especially today's age, because like we're just surrounded. So like, for instance, one thing like chat GBT,
Mhm.
like things are just like created and made and like people just find
Wild.
things and like I can give like a
Yeah.
million different
So
versions, but
crazy.
having like
Yeah.
that mental like vision of like this is something that I'm envisioning creating and doing and like moving forward with, I think is really pivotal. Like I think
Mhm.
that's what defines like I'm gonna say an American dream, but like how you really take a step forward in terms of like not settling for something.
Yeah.
I think too many people settle for stuff and they're happy with whatever status quo. And it blows my mind. I've met a couple
Yeah.
people who just like they're happy with whatever it is, and like which I guess in a way is kind of nice. Like the mindset of like
It would
everything's
be
hunky
very
dory.
chill and very relaxed,
Yeah,
and I would be less anxious.
yeah, and but I guess like there's always things that I want, which I guess is always bad. Like like this thing, like oh, I
Yeah.
want to have this, but I also like I want to work for it and earn it
Totally.
myself. And I think sometimes you can only do that if you work hard or achieve to a certain
Yeah.
level. So I guess I say all that just to say like I think it's I don't think people really people really need to like in today's age have that type of mindset. And
Mhm.
like man, having a vision like that I think is really powerful and really like life altering.
Mhm.
And I guess the only thing similar has been like maturity in my life where like I've had like these light bulb moments of like sitting there and realizing, okay, it's time to fucking buckle up. It's time to mature. It's time to take a
Yeah.
step forward. It's time to like, grow up, And like I remember, as a kid, my wife and I have been together for a long time. Couple since freshman year of high school, but I just
That's awesome.
remember this mindset of like, okay, it's time to grow up. It's time to start,
Mhm.
growing up and taking things seriously, because you just, life takes these different angles.
Yeah.
So like I think like in terms of like this driving, like I can kind of picture it like mentally picture it
Yeah.
like driving and then just,
Just had like
having
that aha moment. Yeah.
yeah. And like
Yeah.
just
It all kind of hit. Well, and the thing that was funny too, it's like, all right, well, I was going to start a training company because I had just, I moved up to Greenville, South Carolina to work for a disaster relief company that failed to get its funding in the 6 months it had to basically generate it. So we could
mhm,
basically have jobs. And so I was a training director for that company. And so I thought, okay, well, just, I'm going to basically take the curriculum that I'd already created in for survival and preparedness and just, create a curriculum and start a school and like do all these
that's a
things.
pretty cool gig though. It
And
sounds like
then,
it.
just only use and recommend gear and then sell like through retail equipment that I'd say is American made, built to last and be repaired instead of replaced, and built to be, heritage quality,
Yeah.
heirloom quality.
Very important. Like the what you just said was like repaired, not replaced. I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
a big one, like, especially in today's age. I mean, and we talked, and we can get into that too.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like the American made part is like, something I feel like is shifting. It's very bizarre. Like it's like I feel like it's been like a balancing act of like, some things are just constantly outsourced no
Hmm.
matter what, no matter what, and then like that American aspect of American made, like American pride of creating
Hmm.
and making something, and we talked about it, it's like almost been watered down and devalued where it's like it's not the best anymore. It's
Yeah.
not the top quality. I mean,
It's just a
there
label now.
yeah, and,
Yeah.
and like even you had mentioned, and I guess to me, like it's almost naive, but it's like you said, people can just put that tag on
Yeah.
there.
There is no standard
It's-
for what made in America means outside of Berry compliance when you're selling in military.
yeah,
But on the civilian side, it's just
slap it on
you could
whatever.
literally stitch a label that says made in America on, and you stitching that label and having a part of the manufacturing process be the United States would allow you to say that without getting sued.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like that to me is like so.
It's
It's
upsetting.
insanity.
Yeah.
Just to think of that, especially when a lot of people, I think. And we talked a good bit, like,
Yeah,
about different
we-
things,
we-
and, like, not to like ramble off different like little paths and avenues, but like,
Yeah.
I think for the most part, if people had a choice
Yeah,
and
they
like
understood.
hypothetically
Yeah.
something's the same cost, and one says, made in the United States, and the other one is whatever generic brand,
Yeah.
people will will buy the
Yeah.
made in the United States.
And that's them voting with their dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like, I think it's always pivotal. So when people cheat that, or like that to me is just like, I don't know, it's
Fires
just
you up, man. It gets me so mad.
yeah, right. I mean, like it just like
I want to have like my new full-time job could be just whistleblowing.
yeah,
I
like
would,
yeah,
I would happily do it.
dude, right?
If anybody
So
out
it's
there
like
wants to
it's
fund
so
my
infuriating. Like
whistleblowing
and
company.
yeah. I mean,
Because if people knew, and so okay, so I have several soapboxes that I'll try to
Sure,
get
sure,
on
sure,
and
yeah,
off quickly. But
I'm
one
always
of
for
them,
them too. Yeah, so I
one of
do
them is like on the construction and like material and like the design stuff. So like, I used bar tacks on leashes because of my climbing background.
Yeah.
And so you're familiar with the bar tack?
Yeah, so and I'll be honest, I know the where and the phrase.
No,
I
it's
know what it looks,
okay.
but
I'd
like
love
let's
to
like
talk
let's
about
talk about like bar. What's the difference between like what makes bar tacks
So
versus
a bar tack is named that because it's the shape of the tack.
Mhm.
Essentially, it's like a straight solid bar, and it is the best way. There's two ways to do this, so I won't geek out too much on like the manufacturing
Sure.
side. But one of the ways, so what you want to do, you have the strength of your material. Sorry, everybody. Here I go.
Yeah, there we
You have
go.
the strength of the material, right? So it's a tubular nylon webbing, strength rated about 4,000 pounds. It's a tensile strength of the material, right, when stretched and pulled to a breaking point. And so that 4,000 pounds is based on a standard deviation. I won't go into the Sigma ratings for stuff, but like it's just, anyways, it's way stronger than that, but 4,000 pounds is the average. So what you want then when you're sewing a product like that together is you want to match the tensile strength of the webbing with the tensile strength of whatever it is you're using to stitch it, which makes sense, right?
Right.
So now the entire thing would break at or above 4,000 pounds just
Right.
because if you have it in a loop. Anyways, lots of geeky stuff that I'll
Sure,
talk
sure.
about because of my climbing background. But yeah, so I was a climbing guide. I guess I should say that. I was a climbing guide and am still technically a climbing instructor
Pretty cool.
for 25 years. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
that's one of my
Yeah.
backgrounds, and currently teach OVM or operational vertical mobility to like tier 1 units in the
Oh, hell yeah.
military through a company called Element Rescue, which is located in Greenville. Anyways, okay, so that's I just
Cool
was like
background.
I'm like
Sure,
geeking
yeah.
out on bar tack.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I don't know why this guy is geeking out bar. It's because I've
Well,
got.
I would say
I'm
a lot of people don't even
just have a lot
comprehend
of-
or know the difference. Like,
Yeah.
unless you're invested or
well,
involved.
and so
yeah.
that is what I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
Is that nobody knew what that was within the industry, within the canine sewn nylon industry. And so because of my climbing background, I knew what it was. And so I started using that because it was the strong, like I just explained, it's the strongest way
Right.
to connect 2 points to the material. And so I designed the bar tacks. And so that's the other thing that people don't know is they don't understand this. So they don't really know how to get the bar tacks. I'm not going to share how to do that on
Of course.
live TV.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah.
anybody else to do it. But what I would say is like, all right, part of what I started doing was educating the customers. And this is back when I was in my basement. So I'm by myself in between night shifts. And I would say, hey, I'm using the bar tack because of X, Y, and Z, just what I just explained to you. And what I would see then in a couple of weeks later is my competitors, just me at the time, started using bar tacks, and they were
Yeah.
using the same exact my verbiage. They were just copy and pasting my verbiage of why. Oh, yeah,
man.
we're using bar tack because of da, 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 da. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
so. And
Tough
the
tough
funny
to-
thing was that when I started using bar tacks on leads, people were so confused as to what that was. They thought it was weaker than straight stitching, which at the time the standard was a box X stitch. And so I had to put cosmetic box X stitches over on top of my bar tacks
Just visual
to help
cues.
people feel confident enough to use it because because that was such a new thing that
Yeah.
nobody had ever seen before in that space. So
So and this is around 2012, 2015, like in that range time.
yeah,
When you're doing
13.
so other than just with direct clients and stuff like that you're working with in the area, like how is it that like distributing and stuff like that? Like is there like any type of like, so I always think of like the farm community. So you have like SHOT Show. Is there like
Mhm.
something that's like similar that you're visiting and showing and then people are seeing your products and stuff, or like
yeah, so
if that makes sense?
I mean, the way that we grew would be the way that I would prefer to grow anything, and it was just completely natural and organic.
Word of
and
mouth type?
Yeah, and the nice thing too, so as a police officer, like I'm selling to people that are my peers. I'm talking to them,
Mm-hmm.
and so the nice thing with them, which is like the blessing, and the curse, we're as a police officer, you're one of the least trusting individuals on the planet because you spend your entire day getting lied to.
Yeah,
So like
that's true.
I'm literally for a job, I'm having people that I'm interacting with lie to me all day, every day for an entire shift. And so because of that, and handlers specifically, I think even more so because they are so in tune with their dogs, there's this intuition that they get where they can sniff BS a mile away that is like even greater than and more sensitive than a regular patrol officer, which I think is awesome. So like to break into that demographic that is the least trusting of a least trusting demographic
Yeah,
could, in my opinion, could only have happened through word of mouth. This is before TikTok was really a thing that anybody was
of
using
course.
or social media. There were no influencers. You, per policy at that time, I would say almost without exception, departments you couldn't post in your uniform or post with your, like your organization that you're working for if you're in the military.
Right.
That wasn't permitted. So there was no other way to grow besides word of mouth. And that was the cool thing for us. It's like, all right, these guys, the least trusting of the population, are endorsing it personally because they're trusting it because of, basically me like
Seeing
handling
something.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's, again, I'll try not to geek out too much, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there's like IX interactive design, interaction design. And so like there's certain components, like there's ways that you design a product that inform the end user as to how to use it without having to have an instruction manual.
Yeah.
That's IXD, and that's like the real, like if you're really working on high end design, that's it. When you grab something, the ergonomics of it, the way that it sits in your hand informs you how to. I mean, this will be a silly example, but a game controller,
Yeah.
is a good game controller versus a bad game controller. You're going to tell the difference. And you're a gamer,
Yeah.
right?
So you look at Nintendo and like they've always had these kooky like where like your
Chunky,
hand placements
clunky,
like
weird.
like there's no way this is comfortable
Yeah.
to use long term or whatever. Yeah.
So the same thing applies to that. So it's cool because like where the handler may not understand all of these kind of nerdy things that I could geek out for the next 3 or 4 hours on about how I stitched this one
Right.
product, and
But
why I did it the way I did. But when they have it in their
naturally have it.
hands,
Yeah.
there's like a certain feel to it. And then having it function for them flawlessly and not fail like they've had other gear fail. It's how the company got started, and it's where I got the traction, and it's how I gained the trust of, again, like the least trusting companies. Cause you can get that either, sorry, this is like super like inside
No,
industry
it's
stuff.
good. No, I mean,
So you can get the trust, I'm gonna use air quotes for this. You can get so this is how you get the trust of a demographic.
Right.
Is actually listening to them and making a product that's gonna work the way they need it to without fail every time. That's how you gain it naturally. The other way you can gain it is by drowning them in free gear and by essentially buying a handful of buyable people's loyalties. And most of those people tend to have pretty big followings on Instagram. And so it appears as though this person is the expert. Really, they're just like basically capitalizing on an algorithm.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with
Just
their
end user
whether
algorithm,
they're
yeah.
a subject matter expert or not. They just fit the bill enough and have learned how to milk an algorithm and have turned that into a profitable enterprise that they're probably going to be doing after they're done policing.
Yeah.
Which is basically what they're working on. Anyways, I've got a whole thing on the TikTok
Yeah,
top
sure.
thing. I think it's important because I think on the PR side, it is vitally important for the general public to get to know the police officers. We try to do that on the street. So we will make sure to stop, talk to the kids, and make sure the kids aren't afraid of us. Like, the biggest turnoff that you could have or issue you could have with us if we're doing a domestic call is by telling the kids, or when we're walking around downtown, is telling the kids, you better behave or I'm going to tell the policeman to take you, because like we will get in that person's face and correct them pretty quickly. Because what we don't want is that kid to ever get abused or harmed and not be willing to call us and not feel safe.
That
on
public
this.
perception of
Side note, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, but I'm just saying, so I do see the positive side to it. So I don't want to like crap on all the TikTok cops, but the phenomenon that's occurred has essentially marketed and profited people that should just be doing their job because they want to serve their community,
Yeah.
not because they want,
For
free shirts,
followership
stickers,
or
and
free. Yeah.
like, and they're getting paid for it. So like I have this,
It's
I think
a
there's a way
balancing
to do it,
Yeah.
and it still be honorable, but
It's
anyways.
it can be
So
it's frustrating
that's
too.
not
yeah.
the way to that's not the way to gain trust. And the thing that happens long term is inevitably somebody will get gifted a free whatever. And we're not going to share the stories.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm frenemies with a lot of these companies. Like, we're friends and competitors, but like
Yeah.
I have a good level of respect for them because we're all American made, which I think we got to support each other.
Yeah.
But they'll share, the handlers will be like, oh yeah, I just got a whatever free from so-and-so. and that thing fell apart, on the table when they're doing bite work or whatever. I'm like, oh God, like somebody got bit or almost bit, about lost a cheek,
Mhm.
over that. Like, okay, that's a problem, right? And so like, yeah, it's, again, I won't name any names, but there is an individual who, it is kind of funny because we do talk a lot about some of the behind the scenes stuff, and they won't work a dog on the table unless it's wearing one of our harnesses because it's their livelihood. Like they can't get bit and stay
Yeah.
employed,
Yeah. I
so
would say it seems like this, it's definitely like very, I don't know, it's very like, even this discussion wise, it's very interesting how like there is like this like interactive and stuff. But I mean, it is like another thing too. Like I think we see quite often like influencers and stuff, especially like, even like firearm industry, whatever,
Mhm.
you see it quite often, same
Oh
thing. And
yeah.
it can be very frustrating to see. And like, if you're, I guess in a way naive in terms of you're coming at this very fresh without any
Yeah.
background or knowledge or like research, you kind of just go off of like the first thing that flashes to your eyes. And
Yeah.
so it like, it's natural. It's like,
I mean, this is
I,
market. It's like marketing,
yeah,
like good marketing,
marketing
really,
101.
right?
Yeah. And like, like I'll be the first one to admit, like, I'm like a bird, like, man, I see something shiny. I'm like,
I
interesting. And then
mean,
like,
totally feel the same
yeah,
way
and so like even different
with bags
yeah,
and
I was about to say
things.
I
And
was
yeah,
literally looking at like
I'm
that
like,
Topo
oh
design
yeah,
bag and like
yeah,
we were talking about that and
yeah,
like and so it's just always interesting how that works and
yeah,
like same thing and it's like I was actually arguing with my wife. We were talking about what's the name Cotopaxi,
yeah, yeah,
and so she likes some of their stuff and I've said I it looks cool but it looks like cheap shit.
yeah.
Like I'll take one of the higher like the Arc'teryx or one of the other bags any day of the week. Which even Arc'teryx says they've taken like a very interesting turn as of late. Like they've
It's
definitely
crazy seeing all these companies do that.
right,
Yeah,
and so it's like but I'm at least self aware enough where I'll admit like but like saying like comparing them, I'm like no,
yeah,
I would the Cotopaxi to me looks kind of cheap.
yeah,
Like I don't think I trust that. Just doesn't like
yeah.
that. She's like it's the same. I'm like no.
It's not the
So
same.
we'll get in an argument.
Yeah.
So it's like and
You
nothing
can bring
against
me
her.
over and I'll like tell her what the size thread they're using and stuff and
Yeah.
talk
So it's
about.
always and that's always like the intricate. But if you're not like super invested or like
Yeah,
you have that background or information wise, you look at it and like
yeah. It
it's
looks the same. I
it
mean,
looks great. Yeah.
I have an entire product line that I created. I mean, for the civilian market, because so many civilians were buying our police grade,
Absolutely.
military grade gear that didn't need it. But then part of the reason, so that's part of the reason why. The other part of the reason why I did it is
Place.
because of my my frustration that I had with competitors who were taking on Instagram. The product looks the same as this.
So on visual cue, yeah.
So it doesn't. They think to the customer, it's not you can't compare this with their product. It's like stitch for stitch. I mean, if you grabbed it, I mean, I saw some stuff downstairs. I'm not going to say anything,
No,
but
you're
we
good.
could bring it up
You're
here and
good.
show you. Like I'm not going to do it.
But I have a different
No,
tirade. I have like a
we're
whole
gonna
thing
say
of
it.
stuff. So
He
yeah,
can do that when I'm not here. You can talk
it's
about,
okay.
but like it's stitch for stitch. It's not the material is different. The quality of the construction is different. Like there is not a physical comparison if you held them in your hand, but on Instagram on a dog, it looks the same. And so I created a line, the adventure series specifically for civilians, but also because I wanted people to understand like, hey, this is the equivalent of what other people are making. Not that. Like there isn't a company doing this. There's companies that I would sorry, I go on rants.
No, you're
I
good.
would call
I mean, that's the reason why. I mean, like we chatted
yeah.
before, and that was the reason why. I mean, there's different companies and stuff like that, and this was specific. Like when we got this, it wasn't just because it's the whatever brand. I mean,
Yeah.
there was nothing that really compares, and even like money saving, it's not worth it. And so, like when we got this, when we got Gatsby, there were certain little things and stuff that he, would get nervous and stuff, and we can't have his collar slide off. And even though
totally.
the collar isn't the primary method of like, what, but it's still on his neck. We have different,
And that's
attachments, but it was important.
Yeah.
It was, and like that was the thing. I don't want anything to happen
Yeah.
or it's like one of those things like, it's kind of like, I always compare like 4x4. It's like,
It's just my elbow.
it's just like,
Yeah.
you don't always need 4x4, but the one time you do need it or
Yeah.
you have it, you'll be so happy that you had it
Yeah.
instead of being stuck in the middle of nowhere or whatever.
Totally.
And so like, having something that I know will work and like I wanted the rigid thing, it's not like an everyday thing, but
Yeah.
if we're out and about, I want this to be on so I
Yeah.
know it won't slip off his neck and won't slip off his head and he'll
And that's
manipulate himself out of it.
That's the civilian demographic for us. So like really, we're designing gear and selling it specifically for military and police working dogs, or what we would call discerning citizens with working line dogs. So dogs that are either trained for personal protection or are just really tough on gear.
Yeah.
And I mean, those dogs will blow through stuff. Max, my dog, he's a Dutch Shepherd Mal mix and is at home, as a personal protection dog, but like he's not on the road doing deployments every day like a police dog would, right? So he's not a working canine.
Right.
But that dog, the wear and tear on his gear, I would take any dog off patrol for like a month, put the gear on him, and let my dog sit at home for a month and compare him. It looks like my dog has been to like war and back. Like
Mogadishu and everything.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know what he does.
Yeah.
We've got like 18 acres. He runs around and like maybe he is like doing some kind of like war games or he's murdering people and I don't even know about it. He's just piles of
burying in the back.
Yeah, I have no idea. But I mean, it looks.
Yeah.
I'm like, so. Anyways, but that is an example. So that's like a discerning citizen. So like. You're talking about bags and stuff, you would be the customer. I guess you are the customer. But like you'd be the customer that actually knows enough. You may not know all the things that I could share with you about the, designs and the structure and the materials and everything. But like I'm saying, like you understand it from like intuitively by holding it, feeling it, using it, right? You're like, okay, this is different. Yeah. And that's the cool thing. It's allowed us to get the traction that we have with the civilian market, which we've had a lot of fun with. So
yeah, but to say in like even still, it's like I feel like even like my good friend Gil, like he had a dog and like again same thing, same aspect of not necessarily for personal protection, but that was kind of like the go-to of standard. And then there's also people who also just want the best, in terms of like quality, or they know there's like a high level standard of whatever the product is, so you're getting a top tier product. And I mean, that's always been my aspect. If I can afford, if I can get something that is the top tier and it meets whatever criteria, then I'm going to do it, know? And especially like, being statewide, being in South Carolina. I mean, like there is like some level of pride that, like,
totally.
To me, you're such a ham. You're such a big old ham. But, if you can support some, a company that does make, I mean, like to me, it's awesome to see a company that makes a high quality product be in the state. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where I want my money to go. And so, especially when it being a small operation, like, which I think is important,
I mean,
it's a big thing,
It is. And for anybody out there listening, like I would say, okay, yeah, like great. Modern Icon is a kind of internationally recognized brand. We have been on like TV and stuff. And so
really?
Cool. So like Hawaii 5-0, we've been on 2 seasons.
That's cool.
Magnum PI, Turner and Hooch. We have a buddy that was on SEAL Team on CBS. And you had to pay to play with that, so we couldn't afford to do that. But he loves us so much, and is such a cool dude that he like got us a cameo. So there was a moment where the dog was swapping out with another dog.
Yeah,
and like for literally a split second, it was he had a so props to my buddy. Because he's a total boss, but he's so cool. Anyways, so we've been anyway. I'm saying that to say like it appears as though we're some like massive, huge company.
Operation. Yeah.
I'm driving in my Bentley, bathing in cash, whatever.
Yeah, he rolled up in a Honda Civic, dude.
In reality, like the cost of disrupting the industry and continuing to innovate and continuing to get products out to a demographic that doesn't have a lot of money. That's the part that I would say to anybody that wants to listen to this.
Yeah.
Whatever I did is the worst business model that you could possibly do. And we've joked about making it a nonprofit and being like, because really what we're trying to do is mission driven. Like we aren't saying that because that's a great thing to say to sell gear. That's in everything that we do and every stitch that we sew. Like I'm designing the gear for police handlers. And to date, they're still trusting the gear because nothing has changed. It's only gotten better over time.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what we're designing the gear for. And if that customer can't afford it, then we're taking away from the reason why we exist. And like, what's the point then? So like, and I won't get into like too many side whatevers, but like,
I get
stitch for stitch and the material that we use, like you could take that and take the raw materials themselves and the complexity of the design, and put it next to a competitor's, and we should be charging twice what we're charging for the harness if we were matching their profit margins. And we're not, which means we're not really a profitable company. We've had multiple companies come to us to buy us because they thought, my gosh, these guys are huge. And they looked at our books, they've realized that our profit margins are so low that we're not purchasable. Yeah. So I'm just saying that because I feel like I need to like clear the air and let people understand like, all right, this is something that we're committed to, that I'm committed to. My business partner, his name is Josh, was my old beat partner, actually, which is cool. I mean, we got lots of cool little side stories.
Yeah.
But like we're both of us are like, we're sitting on used office furniture that we got from the common area at the mill, just slogging through it. I mean, trying to get it done.
It's tough too when you're in that position, because I mean, obviously I'm not in the same shoes, but I understand and comprehend like trying to give 110%, but also making it to where you're, obviously mission driven is still like, viable. Because like you said, I mean, like the cost and stuff like that is like, I mean, I would venture anyone to go and look at canine harnesses in general and just look at the cost of any company. I remember the first time looking at harnesses a long time ago was London Bridge.
Oh yeah, I
and
can
like
talk about that.
it's like, I want to say
Let me tell you about LBT.
Yeah, I want to say, man, like they were charging like $1,200 something for the harness,
12.
and I mean, like brought the memory. So I mean, I'm just thinking, I remember very distinctive, like holy shit, So and of course they got in some little hot waters not too long ago, and so like I think that naturally to me would always create a slightly distrust.
It's not supposed to be a tell-all.
Yeah, no.
He gave me a couple of sips of bourbon.
Yeah, my bad. We were enjoying some really good bourbon.
Let me tell you about LBT, because that to me, sorry, LBT, you guys are great. Don't civil sue me.
No.
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. So here's an example. Of another reason why I started the company, and started manufacturing gear. Is because the companies that were making the highest end gear were making it for special operations. So if you wanted to get a really high end harness, for example, you had to go to a company that was manufacturing it for the military. Other than that, I'm saying like go through these companies' catalogs and sort through all the gear that they had. It was pet quality at best. The majority of it couldn't last more than a couple different. It couldn't last more than a dog, which is a service life of about 6 years, in a police department. So, anyways, I digress. But like the whole thing with the military was, okay, they're $1,200 harnesses, and these handlers were trying to buy it because they needed quality gear that was going to work, and this gear would work. The issue is, and you still see this on a lot of designs. You'll design gear. So I do have a separate manufacturing company, Modern Icon Canine, Modern Icon Manufacturing, and I make gear for special operations, small batch runs of really custom stuff. It's not a publicly available kind of thing. And so, I can tell you like when you're making for the military, the markups are huge. And so what they'll do then is they'll have and pass that on, essentially be like, all right, we're already making it. So all we got to do is charge more, because you have to be able to sell to the government a little less than your retail. Mm-hmm. So they'll just charge the government whatever they want to do for retail, and then charge you even more than that. You're paying X whatever more than retail. Right. When you're buying it, if it's made for the military. So the problem with it is those products are designed around the comms mostly, and then the video systems, the surveillance systems for these harnesses. And so like the back panel of a harness, this is the easiest thing to notice for anybody out there listening. The back panels of most of these harnesses are designed to have a camera system. It used to be just a handful of them. Now there's a ton more, so that may change. But it's just one of those telltale signs of when you're buying something, what it was designed for. Because I think that's important people to know, is like the designer's intent, right? And that's one of my things. I'll be your interpreter.
I was about to say, like, I think when you're in that aspect, when you're looking over stuff, you kind of start figuring out, okay, like this is what the
I've kind of always been like that. That's one of my, like, I would say I got a genetic predisposition to design. I can talk about my grandpa and stuff like that. But definitely. It's like for that LBT example, like that harness is designed not around the dog. It is, but it's designed around the camera system and the electronics that need to go on that for them to talk to the dog. Yeah. To give him direction and stuff.
And everything's fleshed out for them.
And so then they build it around that. So it's built around that, and then it's built around the anatomy of the dog. Yeah. Right. So this inanimate object that is not in any dimensional way designed for the dog, even though they say it is, but it's a rectangular block. Find an animal and tell me which animal has, right angles. Flat. Like none of them do, right? Yeah. So you can't tell me that's designed. Anyway, so that's a whole other soapbox of the electronic side of all these enhancements that they're doing to the dogs. It's just, at some point it turns into a circus. Yeah. And it's a laser light show. Just let the dog be a dog and do his natural thing and just focus on training. So anyway, sorry. So but that harness is designed around that. So anatomically incorrect for the dog. And so the funny thing is I'll have, like, there's competitors that have made harnesses that are designed to be compatible with camera systems, because they also sell said camera systems. So it makes sense. And I've had people send me videos and even their promotional videos where they'll clip in to do like, this is a rappel rated harness,
Mhm.
using air quotes because there's no standard. I use the standard I use. So like we have I brought one
Yeah.
here. Like the standard that I use for it is the standard that applies to life safety application for humans. So it exceeds anything that you could ever come up with for a dog. But anyways, again, I digress.
Yeah.
So, but like even the promotional videos from this company where they're clipping into those 2 points that are extended because of the size and footprint of that camera system, accordions the harness. So it just, and the whole harness is now completely deformed, which cannot be intentionally designed that way unless
Right.
it's some kind of like shock absorbing system
yeah.
of breaking apart, it's not how
Right.
it works. So but then that was in their that was in their like promo video. It's like, oh, and somebody sent me a video like, bro, look at this. But if I didn't explain that to you and you didn't know it, you wouldn't know what to look for.
Yeah, you would look at it
and you wouldn't know why they put them that far apart. It's offset from the straps that go to the dog that support the dog's chest.
Yeah, it's
right.
totally
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that was the thing that was frustrating too, is nobody was making the gear for the handler, for the police officer. And so, yeah, like I have, like this is a skeletonized design. I could talk about my architectural inspiration being modernism and geek out on that too. But basically, the design of the harness it's skeletonized, and so it's just like the structure of the harness is not covered in a facade, essentially. Yeah. And so it's all exposed. That's to make it minimal. But the material, it's doubled up. I mean, it's just overbuilt, right? But like, there's Molly on the side and there's elastic for chem lights and you have a strobe light. So you still have features and functions for it. Yeah. But I'm not going to take the easiest point to grab on the dog for a handler and offset it or move it out of the way so that you could put a camera system that you probably are never, these are $80,000 units. If you're a department and every dog's got a camera on them, awesome. Unlikely, and I'd say not the case, right?
No.
And so like I'm not going to build my harness for that, 0.01% that happens to have the money, right? Like that's what I should be doing. I'm going to design it for the patrol officer on the road who needs this to work the way they need it to work, because when they're handling their dog, everybody's under duress, right? Yeah. It's the worst possible
stress
scenario. Yeah. Like there's probably civilians, potentially kids. Like you have to have positive control of your dog. If you don't, like that city is going to experience a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. You're going to lose your job. So like on the municipal side, there's motivation to have good gear. On the handler side, there is, and that's just practically speaking. I think from like a level of dignity and respect. And like, if you really do, like take your job seriously, then like everything that you use, and this is what I loved about the officers that I really got along well with when I was working. It's like these guys, the most professional human beings you'll ever meet, but that applies to everything, literally, like their haircut, their grooming, like their workouts, everything about their life is a matter of excellence because they're expressions of themselves, expressions of their ethos. So like your gear is another extension of you, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And so like if you have crap gear, to me, that says, okay, I guess you don't take your job that
very
seriously. Like, you're just showing up, and these officers would be officers that would just be showing up. When you're in good fitness, you got, your excellent health. Like, anyways, I'm so friends with these guys.
Well,
it's always a big difference, guys.
Yeah. And it's also a big public perception too, when you're dealing with the public and stuff like that. If you show up and you're, shoddy and you have crap everywhere, you don't take yourself seriously, then it's like, then the public and whatever that perception, that's the perception that you see. And that's kind of like, all it takes is one bad episode to like have that permanent public perception, whether it be town. And then of course, nowadays, I mean, everybody has a camera, everything can be viral within a second, it can blow up. And then that's what the vision will be moving forward. So it's like, always being, I remember, and I mean, I mentioned Adam earlier, but that was something that he had talked about a good extensive, like a while back, was like, being in shape and, taking yourself seriously and stuff like that. And if you're not, it kind of says more about you than it's like, again, so like you said, extension, your gear is an extension of yourself. So, and
it's the way that you're connecting to your dog. So like, and that's probably the reason why, like, I would say that's another kind of benefit is, because I was a police officer, I wasn't a handler, which does shock a lot of people. Like, oh, obviously you'd be a handler, which I could talk about the reasons why that was a benefit and not a downside as well, if you want to get into that. But like, the thing is like, I understood the job because I worked it. I was in the environments and scenarios that these dogs are in, so I understood the context, the contextual side of the designs and why they needed to function the way they need to function. Then I got the behind the scenes information that I needed that I couldn't get if I was just designing gear outside of that context, because I can't, legally, I can't access the footage and the scenes that I was physically present for, where I'm seeing the after effects or talking about the details of a deployment, which are things that have then allowed me to, after the fact, be able to design gear
Yeah.
specifically for their needs.
Yeah, and I think that's also important too, which it is interesting too, because I think I have met people who have not been in said positions, but then they'll design or something,
Hmm.
and then sometimes it becomes like where it's like a test, and like where it's like they basically get user feedback, and then they'll adjust or change their stuff. But it is always interesting. But I think you kind of skip a lot of the line when you do have that
Hmm.
actual input experience, and then you kind of like have a vision like to be able to move forward to like
Hmm.
creating stuff. So speaking on that side, like when did you learn how to stitch? Is there something you stumbled on? Like I know you did you like it was at a part of inherence, or did you go out and like okay buying equipment? And we even talked about like different like the Juki and stuff like different
Hmm.
tups and like brother, it's like to me it's always interesting to see like how that's implemented and
Yeah.
stuff. And there's always been times like I know there's been a couple times I've thought to myself like why don't I just fucking do this and I'll just do it myself.
Just
And
go get a sewing machine.
yeah, and then like I
Yeah.
come back down to earth and like I have way too many hobbies already and
Yeah.
like too many like personal investments. Like the
Yeah.
last thing I need is to
One more.
yeah, and like the space and stuff. But it is
Yeah.
something exciting when you're creating, physically doing something. And
Yeah.
it's and like we were talking about earlier, it's like a lost art
Yeah.
or it is dying,
Yeah.
especially United States.
Well, so yeah, a few things. One, I would just say I had a strange childhood, a abnormal, asymmetric, you could call it,
Mhm.
childhood. And one of my oddities was that I'd always was drawn and kind of connected more with the like the older generation, like
Mhm.
my mom's parents' generation. And that was a great generation, right? Uh, Post World War II, fought, won World War II, came back and made America the powerhouse that it is, still today. We're on our way back to even
Place.
more, I think, now. But yeah, so the thing for me was I wanted to learn everything I could from that generation. Oh, sorry.
You're good.
Um, I wanted to learn everything that I could from that generation. And so that drew me to basically asking lots of questions and learning as much as I could from them. And so that involved going and connecting with my grandma on my mom's side, who grew up during the Great Depression here in the US. And, she learned how to hand sew. She had a hand sew. So, the saying back then was make do or do without, right? So that means you had to repair things
Mhm.
instead of replace it. And again, that goes into the designs. All these things have kind of worked their way into our ethos. But I learned how to hand stitch. So I would just be hand sewing and,
Cool, man.
modifying stuff. And then my grandma on my dad's side, she was a master seamstress and could sew everything from, I mean, she could do fine lace work, everything from like wedding dresses to furniture
Wow.
upholstery. So heavy duty sewing as well. So she taught me how to sew on a sewing machine when I was 13. So I
That's
was a
very cool.
13-year-old dude
Which,
who could sew.
when you're growing up, you're like, ah,
It's
that's
kind of not a manly thing,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
whatever. I've never really kind of fit that bill anyways. So yeah, so and I would just do alterations on like thrift store clothes and stuff that I buy.
Yeah.
And then I was big into the outdoors even then, and loved army surplus stuff,
Yeah.
like I just liked looking at the designs and
Always
how that
cool
stuff is
stuff
made
too,
for
yeah.
life and death type of scenarios. So I'm like picking up on design cues. I've kind of always had an eye for design and with sewn things. So yeah, so picked up sewing kind of because I just felt drawn to it and thought it would be a helpful thing to have, modify my gear and equipment. So like my outdoor gear, things wouldn't function the
Mhm.
way I wanted them to function. And yeah, and I would just modify it and alter it.
It's crazy too, because I think like I said, you look back and like if you're growing up, it's like I don't think so. I don't want to be that's doesn't But as you get older, you start to realize how important some of those skill sets are. And like again, like we were talking about, like the United States. I mean, like that's like a dying breed. Like those skills are disappearing left and right.
Hmm.
Whether it be stuff that people either a just don't want to learn, or like there's just no one to learn from, and the people that do know it are retiring, or
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate to say it, but are dying.
Yeah.
And it's like those skills are
It's
just
like dying with them.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like that skill set, and then other countries have taken over that type of
Mhm.
manufacturing. And so all of a sudden it's like they are the go-to and the only,
Mhm.
and so like it's disappointing to see that because obviously again, like, it comes back to, the
Yeah.
pride of having something made in the United States. But at the same time, it's like, man, the quality has fallen or dropped in a lot of places. And,
Yeah.
and that's not just like, gear, it's everything.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating to see like, 'cause, obviously you want to support, but I mean, we need more people and I
Yeah.
think some people also, they just, I don't know. It's like I guess like in terms of like skills or like, careers, they just are drawn to certain aspects or just don't think it's a viable, you know what I mean? It's like the same thing with, just general handy, jobs,
Mhm.
So it's just always
Yeah, like
interesting to see.
skilled labor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is like absolutely money in a lot of that stuff because
Mhm.
when you are the one and only go to,
Mhm.
you know, you can charge, this
Totally.
premium price, especially if you're a premium person. But again, in terms of that stuff, it's always interesting to see,
Yeah.
that skill set and people wanting to learn. I think is the other aspect. Have you seen? Do you? I mean, like you said, I know it's still a smaller operation. Do
Yeah.
you? And obviously, like hiring labor, it's obviously super frustrating. I know it can be up and down. I mean,
Yeah.
I myself am lucky that I've never had to do that, but I've come close to thinking maybe I need to. But I've heard from others that it can be, obviously frustrating experience. And then, COVID happened as well. And
Mhm.
then, people's expectations of like, I guess, career wise of what they
Yeah.
want, that changes. So like, how's that been, a frustrating experience or have you had like really, really just go to people who have taken a foot forward or if that makes sense, like
Yeah.
wanting to learn and wanting to,
Yeah,
be viable.
I would say it's ironic that we have such a hard so we have a very hard time finding people who can sew to our standards.
Mm-hmm.
Which has been to our benefit in some ways. I've actually heard this from some of our competitors that they've taken our products and had the girls try to sew things. This is when we're first getting started. We're all friends now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No, I get
but
you.
like, they would tell me flat out their operators couldn't sew to that standard.
Yeah.
And so to meet that standard, it's a challenge. And like you were saying before, a lot of the skilled labor, especially sewing, got shipped overseas in the 70s and 80s and never came back. And so it's ironic in that like South Carolina and Greenville specifically, where we're at, used to be the textile capital of the world. Like all of the cotton and everything would get processed and sent to Greenville, and Greenville was a know nothing town that was surrounded by a ton of mills, and each mill created its own town that kind of formed into what became Greenville City over time. So like it's just crazy I mean, you can drive around Greenville. There's mills all over the place,
Yeah.
but they're all abandoned, turned into shopping,
Breweries,
whatever.
shopping center.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, part of the whole modern icon ethos too is like I want to bring American manufacturing back. It's just that, like I was saying, like there isn't like people aren't available to take those jobs, and so
Yeah.
it's not a scalable brand.
Yeah.
I would say,
Especially when there's a certain quality that
and we can't compromise on it because, like
Yeah.
I said, like this is people that I know or handlers that I know
yeah.
are going to be using the gear.
That's that's a really tough, like that's like a frustrating balance. That's an incredibly frustrating balance in terms of like, obviously making a product and having a level that you don't want it to ever fall below.
Yeah,
But at the same time, obviously being profitable and then,
Yeah.
having a certain price point. And then of course, cost of materials and stuff obviously does not
yeah,
doesn't get
it's going
cheaper.
up. Yeah,
It just continues to rise. So that's always like, man, super frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain aspects of it that I can understand, especially the design side, like,
Mhm.
competing and fighting on some aspects, but also at the same time, like you have to have some baseline.
yeah,
Man, super, super frustrating. Like, I don't know, that's
Yeah.
like, that could be like one of those things where you're just, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it
It's
makes
not
you
comparable. It
crazy.
just makes you
Right,
crazy.
right.
Yeah. I would say that I've been there. Like, I've complained to my wife, like, there's not really a one, go-to answer. You have to compromise at
Yeah.
some aspect. And, you have to choose. And I
Yeah.
think, sometimes pride, I think takes into that part. And
Yeah.
I'm the first one to admit I'm incredibly prideful where like, sometimes it just absolutely bites me in the ass.
Mhm.
It's just frustrating to have to deal with or
Yeah.
fight with. What's been like speaking of prideful, like what's been like one moment where in Modern Icon that you've just been incredibly like euphoric, like you've just gotten like, man, this is exactly what I envision Like, or is there a product or something that you've made that you've just been incredibly happy and, just right off the rip? Or is it, does that make
Yeah.
sense?
I mean, I would say,
I'm sure there's several times it's bad, and obviously everything has a standard that you
yeah.
want. But like, has there ever been like a first product or like a first item or even like a order or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, okay. So,
Complex question, I know. It's just
um, my first big order
yeah,
was outfitting all of the Greenville County canines with tracking harnesses. And that was the moment for me where I realized, oh my gosh, like I think this might be like a thing,
yeah,
which essentially led to me having to make the decision between, how much good am I doing as one police officer on the street versus doing Modern Icon full time and outfitting literally every dog in
hmm
the world, that I could with the quality gear they deserve. But that came through literal like blood, sweat, and tears.
yeah,
So I mean, so I think that was a cool moment for me. But then the bar tacker that I was using to do the stitching, I had to like do two bar tacks side by side that were mirrored because I was so anal retentive about like how particular it had to be that it couldn't be off at all.
hmm
So I do two bar tacks side by side to make one big bar tack because I didn't have that large of a tacker, and the bar tacker that I had was so old that to change the pattern you'd have to change a literal gears in the
Oh
machine,
shit,
like you're
yeah,
lifting the hood of a car and like swapping out gears.
yeah, yeah,
So it was really old. And once it starts going, there's no stopping it. Like
yeah.
it's just the momentum itself is going to keep it going. And so if it broke a needle, then it would hammer that broken needle through your material. And the tracking harness, I'll show you.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
gonna this is not gonna help any competitors out because it would only frustrate them. But like the final the final step to making the harness is stitching that center spine together.
hmm
And I'm sewing through multiple layers of material to do that, which is really challenging. And it takes matching the size of the needle with the thread. And it's just a whole lot of, again, nerdy stuff we
Yeah,
won't
like
get into.
intricacies. Yeah,
Yeah. But the thing is that if that broke, so that's the last step. It's about 4 hours of time if I'm rushing to make a harness.
yeah.
Uh, and if it did that, it would completely destroy the entire harness.
And then you have to
I have
completely
to start
reset.
all over again.
Oh my
And that
gosh.
happened a couple of times. And like I didn't have the money for the materials
Yeah,
that I was
yeah.
buying. So like I'm doing this order and I remember being in my basement and I literally like just sat there head of my hands crying because I was like, I don't have any more material. I don't know what to do. Like,
Yeah.
and it was just that moment too where I was like, I can't, this is not, it was supposed to be a hobby. I was
Yeah.
doing it for fun. Like it was going to be a
Isn't
hobby.
that funny how that works?
And I'm
How
like,
a hobby
this is
transforms.
not,
Yeah.
I can't keep doing this. Something's got to give essentially. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to have to really like make this thing a thing or just basically tell people, hey, it's going to be 7 months for your
Yeah.
order and just turn it into like an Etsy store kind of a thing.
Yeah. And I was about to say, so like that's always like a frustrating aspect,
Yeah.
especially when you're doing stuff like, man, and obviously still maintaining quality and everything. Oh man,
Yeah.
I definitely
So
comprehend like,
so that's like it's almost kind of a sad.
yeah,
The coolest moment for me was Hawaii 5-0. This is like little known facts, but like is the longest running show in American history.
Mhm.
At least it was. I don't know. I guess it's still going. But we were in like 2 seasons of it, and the coolest thing was getting on that show because they actually bought the gear, so it wasn't like we had to give it to them.
Yeah.
And normally you have to like pay to be in a movie or to pay for a placement. I had to pay for it because of it being so old. It was one of their traditions that they would. Because another thing too is like Turner and Hooch has got our 3-inch rigid collar on the dog, but they took the label off, which is what they'll do. They'll take labels off unless you pay for your basically to have your logo on it or your likeness to be
Yeah.
represented. And it's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, depending on the thing. I mean, you pay
Yeah.
insane amount of money for product spots, product placements. Like when you see like the Apple logo, people put stickers over them. Well, it's because
Right,
the Apple
yeah.
logo just to show it means that they paid money every time you shot it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, long story short, because it's such a long running show, it was a tradition that they would not cover logos, so they would proudly represent American brands and local brands, especially Hawaiian brands. And so we got on there, and so like seeing my collar with
That's
our
really
logo,
cool, yeah.
at the time, we were still like I think it was like 3 of us at that time we'd grown to. It was just like the coolest thing ever. I'm like
Yeah.
watching, our stuff on
Man,
TV.
that's actually, I mean, I did not know that about Hawaiian 5 but I mean in general, like that's such a cool aspect and outlook to have like a prideful moment, like, being able, actually like representing. I mean,
Like seeing
it's
it.
kind of crazy like why that's not more popular in terms of, other just running shows and stuff like that. Like especially like the SEAL team show. Like I've seen and heard like numerous times about, representation and presentation of stuff being on the show and
Yeah.
whatever. And you would think that like a show like that has such a pivotal like
Like a
what
presence.
representation, your
Yeah.
presence,
Yeah. For
they
that,
would
for
they
that
would really
community.
push, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just wild. And but that also reminds me of like watching other movies. And if you're someone who like geeks out or watches like specific gear and whatever, and you'll see like I mean, there was one movie, I think it was on Netflix, and I can't remember what's his name who played Thor or whatever.
Mhm.
And he was on there and he's like supposed to be some whatever, blah blah. But point being is he's wearing like a plate carrier, and it's like like you literally
It's
just go
the
on Amazon.
worst.
It's like the worst
Yeah.
plate carrier
Yeah.
you
Like
can wear.
they did not even pay.
And it's like
yeah.
I mean,
Somebody did not inform them.
yeah,
It's the
someone
prop
was
department.
yeah, someone was like, get a plate carrier, and then they just went on Amazon and found the first one that could 2
Loaded
days
their
ship.
cart.
Yeah, and it's like literally, the cheapest, So I just think it's like always amazing when like people, one, I find it cool when they actually use good gear on
Mhm.
television shows, especially when it's
Yeah. I
supposed to
think
be
it
representing
adds. It totally adds
authenticity.
to
Yeah,
it. Yeah. It makes you want to get invested in it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And like it kind of just shows like this is what, they'll use,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, I don't know, just mind boggling to me just to think about, in terms of that. But yeah, it's just, man, I
Yeah.
guess, I mean, I knew about covering logos and stuff like that, but I always kind of felt like it was the other way around, where
Mhm.
it's like using something and they didn't pay to have the licensing from the actual company or whatever, so they have to cover it, for whatever. But
Yeah.
it's the other way
Yeah.
around, where it's like actually
The company
you have
has
to pay.
I got to pay to have
yeah,
my stuff shown because it's like an advertisement.
yeah,
So
free advertising. I mean, I guess it's still frustrating, in
Yeah.
general. But man,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. But yeah. So in terms of that, has obviously like with the canine stuff, has there ever been a moment where you've wanted to stretch out to other items in terms of design and stuff, and like make certain items? Because obviously, like, I mean, I myself, there's always been like an itch of like you do one thing, I'm like, oh man, it would be kind of cool like this, and you start,
Mhm.
go down rabbit holes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I guess
You have to be mindful of time, your own time as well, investment.
this will be another soapbox.
Yeah,
And the end of it is stay in your lane.
I totally agree.
So-
I was gonna, yeah. Go ahead.
I'll preach a little bit. Just because you have a sewing machine and some nylon doesn't mean you should do all of the things that you feel like you can do with
Mhm.
it. You should focus on doing the things that you're doing better
Best.
than anybody else is doing.
Yeah,
Otherwise, work for or with a company who already exists that's already doing it as good or better than anything you could ever come up with.
right.
Because that oversaturates the market. It takes away from the company that's actually invested the time, energy, and effort. It's happened to us a lot. I would say that we've got a lot of modern icon tribute brands, like a tribute band playing your
Yeah.
greatest hits, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And which is part of it's cool because again, like that's part of the disruption of the industry. So like we could afford. I was in my basement. I could afford to give the industry a run for its money because I didn't have unlimited money, which is kind of funny because you can do that and like just throw money at it. I just didn't have a need to make any money, and invested 100% of my like money that I made into materials for the next order, right? So
Yeah.
like anyways, all that to say, like that's the one way to kind of disrupt the industry is if you just don't care and you don't have the need to make any money, then that's your way of doing it, or you can just throw money at it. So that's not to discredit anybody who's out there innovating, and I'll happily name some of these companies too that are out there that are really innovating. But if you're not in that position to do something better than anybody else or different than anybody else, then I would just say, please just focus on something that's uniquely your
Focal
own.
point, yeah.
Yeah. Or recommend people to go to these other companies to buy stuff. And so there's lots of stuff that people have come to us and asked us to make that we've said no, just because if I make it, it's because no one else is making it to that standard or nobody else has made it before.
We're innovative enough to, yeah.
Yeah, like where's the
I think that's a good balance.
like the
too.
modular
Yeah.
collar was one of those things, right? So like to
And this
get
is like,
into,
this is one of your newest
one
releases
of our
too.
newest products. So like, the original designed sorry, so get into some of our design stuff. I don't know
Yeah.
if people want to hear this or not, but
Well, too bad. I want to hear it. So that's what this
so our original design rigid collar actually came from a soft collar that I'd made, because up to that point, all of the collars were what I mean. This is funny too, because I'm saying this. We came up with the term rigid collar.
Yeah.
That was never used before. They were just soft collars. They were called flat nylon collars back then, right?
Let's say that's
and so it's just funny because I'm saying these things and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, like that actually wasn't even a thing to say. So we had a soft collar, which is again like everybody else had. What I did was I used a ISC click lock buckle, which I won't geek out on right now, but potentially in the future we can talk about it, because there's a whole backstory to the buckles that we use, which are different than the Cobra buckles. Anyways, so that was my innovation, was that I was using a different buckle for this collar that was a soft collar that made it unique and different than anybody else's. But a handler, I can say so many people's names because they don't mind. But he's still working canine. But his last name was Anderson. So Anderson came to me and was like, hey, I use the collar. I love it. It's so strong that I can use it confidently to do a manual out, which I won't go into the details of, just for TTP protection type stuff.
Mhm.
So nobody else out there that's nefarious would listen to it and know that technique. But the technique involved pressure points that I won't say specifics, pressure points. And so the guy would use his knuckles to hit those pressure points. And I thought, okay, well, that under duress, like that's really hard to hit those spots. What if I made a collar that was stiff? The entire collar was stiff. You could use the body of the collar to do that. These are things that nobody really knows. And it's funny because people will have it and like it. And it's designed for a manual out on a dog that's unresponsive on a bite. That's what it's for. The other benefit to it, and this is, again, things that's funny because now there's lots of companies that are making them, but we were the first. And so they're, the tribute brands. But the stiffness of it, the rigidity of it actually distributes the pressure around the dog's neck instead of on its throat. If you damage a dog's trachea and vocal cords and he's not able to bark, he's out of service because he can no longer be used, which is one of those things that a department can't afford that risk.
Yeah, no, and dogs so are very expensive.
Yeah, and so these are ways that I can design a gear to protect him. Also, the body prevents you from being able to accidentally unclip it. So, anyways, all that, it's a pain in the butt to make with all the keepers and stuff. But so the original design, though, the inspiration came because at the time that I was making that soft collar, a buddy of mine who was a soft sniper who was like, hey, I'm going to be shooting people out of a helicopter. He was going to be in the helicopter shooting people. Not shooting them out of the helicopter.
Yeah.
Unless, I guess he could do that too.
Yeah. I mean, technically, yeah.
But shooting people from the aerial position. And I don't want anybody else's rigger's belt because I'm going to clipped in, right? So if the helicopter yaws or whatever and you go out the door, like that's a problem. He's like, I don't trust anybody besides you. Would you make me a rigger's belt or a shooter's belt? And I'd said no, because if you make that, you can make a belt. If you make a belt, you can make that, right? But I'd said no because like there's so many companies that are already doing it. I can't innovate in that space. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to make a knockoff essentially of somebody else's thing. And so I designed it with a soft clipping point, which is something that I was familiar with from climbing that nobody else had done before to that point. So I made this really unique design that was a 1.5 inch wide rigger's belt. And so I was making that belt and I was like, okay, so then, like here's the collar. So I made the collar based off that belt design.
I think it's very interesting that like in terms of like other competitors, brands, whatever, et cetera, there's never been an incentive to utilize like the climbing background or like material and stuff that's being used, and I think it's kind of mind boggling because when you're trying to develop something and there's certain requirements, then it's like, okay, what other industry or thing has those type of requirements? And like, that's normally what you would think they would lean on. So it's like, okay, this industry does this, like climbing belt, whatever. Like, okay.
It's a very traditions-based industry. The canine industry is.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, like there's still to this day, there's still a lot of training stuff that's still way archaic that people don't even realize that no one uses, even like the, so it's always interesting, but I don't know, to me, it's just always kind of mind boggling. I'm always trying to think of, I guess there's a balance of always trying to find the newest and greatest thing, but not getting so entrapped in trying to have the newest and greatest thing, but also being innovative of like, okay, how can we improve this? Or like, who else does this? Whoever makes a type of product like this, or like, incorporating the best versions of this into something that's not being done already, I guess is the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that is, I mean, the idea of innovation it's important because, if you don't continue to innovate, then your gear kind of stalls out. Yeah. And you're not really doing anything that's value added. So for me, I get a lot of inspiration. I'd say almost all my inspiration outside the canine space on purpose because I want to pull from things, other companies, other, industries are doing, that I can then bring in and incorporate. So like the shooter's belts, started using Tegris, and that's just like a polypropylene multi-layer kind of deal. And so it gives you some rigidity. So I came up with this design where you'd put that Tegris inside a squadron laser cut sleeve. And that was, again, another like patentable, unique kind of thing. So yeah, so getting design inspiration from other industries is an important part of the process. But in terms of making other stuff, we are not constantly, but pretty near constantly approached to do one-offs, or this person wants to do a
Test samples,
signature
whatever.
line of whatever, and it's just we have tried in the past and it's never gone well.
Yeah.
And so we just opt out of that. And like I was saying before too, like I have a independent manufacturing company, so Modern Icon Manufacturing. It's just stuff that is like the most custom,
Off the wall, yeah.
craziest, meeting needs that people don't know exist, and never will, kind of a thing. So that's where I get to like really kind of stretch my legs and have a lot of fun design wise, and then that translates into
Incorporating
enhancing
inspiration.
it. So that
Yeah.
this came out of that.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff that I was doing that's kind of not public facing,
Sure.
allowed me to design a product that now handlers can benefit from.
Yeah.
So
So in terms of, I haven't even really even asked this, but like in terms of like, getting into this type of gear, growing up and stuff, was there a lot of canine, presence around? I think you're like the second person I've talked to, like in terms of canine, and it's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have dogs around them and stuff like that.
yeah.
So,
No,
like,
I mean, that was
where does that stem from?
I just kind of stumbled into it, which is kind of crazy, right? So yeah, so I don't have a canine background. I have a personal protection dog.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me a handler. I mean, even though technically I handle them.
But even just like
Yeah.
pet wise.
So yeah, so I was never into like the working line breeds growing up because my parents didn't have them
Right.
for us. And so Max, my dog, was like my first like kind of working line dog.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was never really a thing. And two, like the first product I made wasn't for dogs. It was a rifle sling, actually.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny in its own side story as well. But, seeing the thing that kind of struck me, it was everything in this story is kind of like an aha moment that
Mhm.
I'll have. And, the aha moment that I had was from my climbing background, having used tubular webbing for everything, tying anchors, making harnesses, improvising litters and stuff. And then also too, at that time, I had already started working as the climbing specialist for Element Rescue, which is again like doing the DoD training stuff.
Mhm.
And that's like a USASOC, AFSOC would be our primary demographics for that. I got to be exposed to all kinds of other techniques,
Yeah.
TTPs, that were being used, and so I was already kind of thinking outside the box because of that exposure. And then seeing all the leads were made out of like tubular webbing, or actually it was like Harbor Freight quality
Yeah.
webbing.
Yeah.
I was like, like that
It's
seems like
crazy
a
to
really
think.
simple design.
Yeah.
I think I actually could improve on that. Really active shooter stuff was like a big focus then at the time. And a lot of the techniques that we were using would be improvising using webbing. And so doing webbing lowers, rappels, anchor points, making like full body harnesses out of them for doing drags, but you could also do vertical hauls and lowers as well. And so I just started thinking, okay, it's like if these handlers already have a 30-foot tracking line, 6-foot lead, and like some other like a waist lead maybe, what if I use mil spec climbing grade webbing, where it's like strength rated webbing, and did some innovation where I included a clipping point on the end of it, where they could clip a carabiner into it. So they could turn into an anchor strap, they could do hauls and lowers, and they could do body breaks. And then I incorporated clipping points, which again, we were the first to ever do that. So if anybody's adding a clipping point in there, it's from that kind of inspiration, to be able to clip a carabiner into it and turn that into an anchor strap. Sure, you can clip it in around your waist and that kind of thing, but really the design idea was to use that to create an anchor strap, or you can improvise a harness out of it through those clipping points. And then you could be a handler on scene in an active shooter scenario that has yet to be cleared, but you've maybe posted up on a room and it's got injured kids. And you could put them out the window, and anybody that gets out typically survives in those types of scenarios. If you stay, you die. And they could post their dog up on the door, pull security while they're doing the lowers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so that was always like this thought. So I saw these are like this is the reason why it's like, I'm like kind of Rain Man ish.
Yeah.
When it
Yeah.
comes to this kind of thing.
You're
So I'm
playing
seeing
scenario-
this and I'm
yeah.
like, you know, all these like
Scenarios
things
and,
start
like,
playing out. And I'm
concepts,
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, this is a crazy what if, da 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 da. And so I went and bought some webbing, a snap. I saw the lead that the handler had. Kepke was his name, and he was awesome, highly motivated, but really well trained. To the point that he would be able to know the difference if the gear was going to fail or not, and it was perfect. Anyways, lots of perfect scenarios.
Yeah.
Lots of people part of this process that I would happily name because they all deserve the credit for their part. But yeah, so Kepke was the handler assigned to our platoon. I saw the lead that he was using. It looked like crap. No offense to whoever it was that had sewn it. Box X stitch, looked like it was dry rotted. I was like, hey, if it make you a better lead, would you use it? I went bought some Harbor Freight snaps, and then bought a brass snap at the hardware store, and then I went to REI and bought some tubular webbing, and I already had the sewing machine, and so just went home and stitched it
Put
up.
it all together. Yeah.
Did the bar tack. You can manually stitch a bar tack with the clipping points, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, it's like the best thing ever." It's like,
So was that one of your first like
that was
actual
my first
products?
canine
Yeah.
product was a 6 foot. Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
yeah, with the clipping points.
Do you by any idea, like, do you know if it's still in use or does he still have
Yeah,
it? Or
almost
like, you know,
all of our gear is still in use. So that was
Yeah.
2012, 2013.
you should try and get it back. Like, try and see if you can pay
Okay,
for
so
him
I
to replace
have,
it to like have it
I
mounted.
bought it back. I bought some.
You did?
I get
That's
very,
awesome.
I get very
Place.
attached.
You have to replace.
I get very attached to things.
Yeah, I
And
I'm the
I
same way.
have bought some of my first stuff back, but
That's
then
awesome.
some of it, like, you know, the dogs passed, and that's what the handler has to remember the dog by. So
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
I'm gonna let
Can't do
them
that, yeah.
keep that. But I have inspected and
That's
stuff. But
awesome.
like I can tell, and it's funny too because I can see products and I can tell, you know, with the keepers. You know, this is the newer version of it, but if it's got 3 keepers, 2 keepers, or 1 keeper, I can tell how old it is because I kept having to add keepers.
That's cool.
To make account for the adjustability that was needed. So yeah, anyways, I have seen it. So one of the first harnesses that I made was actually a rappelling harness. Do you mind me sharing all these stories?
yeah, I'm all for it. yeah.
Sorry to the audience.
No, you're
'cause I'm
good,
just
dude.
going
It's
off.
always cool. I love hearing the
Um,
stories and stuff.
So the first tracking harness that I made was actually a rappelling harness made for a Greenville County SWAT handler last name DeRosa, and his dog Dooley. Well, that was the first. So he trained the first SWAT certified dog in the state.
Well, what kind of dog was it? Just out of curiosity.
So pretty sure it was a Dutch.
Dutch. Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Dooley, the Dutch.
Yeah.
And so then the other dog certified by the second dog certified by the state as a SWAT dog was named Oz, and last name the handler's last name is Watkins. I don't think it'll mind me sharing his last name. But like so both of them were those are the first 2 tracking harnesses that I ever made, right?
Mhm.
And so like I got to see those harnesses. So my buddy Watkins was like, so I bought DeRosa's back, and then Watkins. I met him up in Columbia actually pretty recently, and he was like, "Dude, let me show you this harness. You'll never believe it." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Bro, that was so that like I was saying when I was crying,
Yeah.
those were some of the first harnesses that
Super
I made.
sentimental. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like harness number like 1 and 2.
That's awesome.
You know, that I made,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Yeah, dude, I just put in a he ties up like a pillowcase, puts in a pillowcase, ties it up, throws it in the wash." And just washes it in the washing machine. He's like, it looks like new. I saw it. I took pictures of it. It looked brand
That's
new.
fucking awesome.
But yeah, it was with that machine that I had
Yeah.
to sew 2 tacks side by side each other
Very
because I was trying to make it appear as though I was, you know, in the big leagues and could afford a bigger pattern tack.
Yeah.
When really I just had a used blue
That's-
jean,
dude, man,
you
that's awesome.
bar tacker. So
I love stuff like that in terms of, and I'm the same way. I'm very sentimental and I get very attached to stuff.
Yeah.
It's whenever I've grown I would say like in a relationship or like some type of bond to something. It can be anything. I get very like emotionally attached to it. It's very hard for me to let go. So whenever I do have to, like, you know, and this is like something I've talked to with close friends and stuff, but even like lately, making sure everything's running. So, but you know, times being tough, not being
Yeah.
able to work, and then like, you know, bills coming up from hospital, you know, having to get rid of stuff that I have collected or I feel like I've earned, or like, you know, it's very tough. It's very difficult to let go.
Mhm.
And especially like having these emotional items that, you know, mean a lot to you. And
Yeah.
it could be anything. Like, so, I mean, there's certain things that, you know, I could replace and get the same thing over again. But, you know, the concept of, I guess for me, of like, you know, earning money and then doing whatever and then
Mhm.
like,
To
rewarding
get that
myself
thing.
and get it. And then,
Yeah.
having to, either get rid of
Well,
it. But I always try to keep,
totally.
it's very difficult for me to just let go of it. And I don't know, it's very,
Yeah.
even though it's an anonymous object,
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah,
inanimate object,
yeah. Right,
it's
right. It's like a sentimental attachment.
very
Well,
much, yeah.
it's funny because handlers, I mean, police officers in general, but like handlers, I'd say even more so, get really attached to equipment if they get good deployments in it. And so they'll call that mojo. So
Yeah.
if the gear has good mojo, they'll pass it on to the next dog that
That's
they
awesome.
have. And
Yeah.
it's like good luck essentially. And it's like superstitious level, like, but religion.
Yeah.
So like a lot of these harnesses, I mean, kind of to go back to the designs, like I've designed the harnesses in the way that you would if you had no restrictions on material quality, complexity of design, quality of construction, durability. If there were no limits to making the gear, how would you make it? Again, because I was doing it when I didn't need any money because it was just a hobby.
Yeah.
And so I had no limits, right? And so one of the requirements was knowing that these departments can't really afford that level of gear. But if I could help them understand that, like that harness will be able to be used for
Essential.
multiple dogs'
Yeah.
careers. And I have yet to have one that's actually wore out.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And so that's what, 2012, 13, like
Yeah.
however many years. It's been a minute, 12, 13 years, right?
Yeah. 13 years. Yeah.
So like to still have this stuff used daily. Like, so this is like not, again, it's
Once a
not
month.
pet use. This is
Yeah.
like,
not in
these
service
dogs are
once or
getting
twice.
multiple
Yeah.
deployments a shift typically because of the demographics in the county. Like it's kind of not, anyways, our guys get a lot of bites. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
So, which is a great place to be if, you need to get that kind of user data.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say that without
Feedback.
it sounding like
Yeah,
people
you
aren't
know.
getting hurt.
Yeah.
They're
but-
bad guys, biting bad guys.
But at the end of the day,
So
it's
bad guys
the
can't
job. It's a part of the,
Yeah.
it's
So, but that's the
entailed.
thing. It's like, all right, the gear is overbuilt for sure. Some people will say it's really heavy. It is. I'm saying that is a design requirement that I put on it, is to overbuild it in order for it to outlast the service life of multiple dogs. And
Yeah.
so now the department can buy it and use it. So maybe they spent, $30, $50, $100 more than they would have allotted to spend, but it's going to
Yeah, we're not
outlast
having to
and they'll be able
replace
to
it
pass it
after
on.
2 years or
Yeah.
whatever.
So, and that will be the thing. Sometimes they'll retire the gear with the dog, but I basically just wanted to make it so that any department anywhere in the U.S. could justify the purchase of it and would get the benefit of its function.
Absolutely. What's I know we've been kind of running. I'm trying to think. I'm not even sure how long. Yeah, we kind of. But what is something design wise or anything that you draw inspiration from? Is there anything like obviously? I mean, you've already mentioned like you said like on the manufacturing side that's not canine and then you
Yeah.
can incorporate it. But is there anything like on a personal level that you enjoy doing that you kind of find and draw inspiration
Yeah.
from?
So I would say, obviously still the climbing stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of it does come from my experience working with the people that we can't mention, the
Sure.
USASOC guys. So because the things that they're doing, they're using some of it's civilian-based equipment, some of it's specific made for them, military application stuff. But then we're doing a lot of UI UX stuff with them. We're modifying kit. And just knowing the off-label uses of things and how they're essentially taking a hacker's mindset and applying it to their equipment and the TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures that they're employing in combat. Like, I just can't, like, the value of being around those guys and
Yeah.
seeing the things you have to have a TS, SCI clearance for. That's, you just can't, nobody
Yeah.
does that, right?
Incorporate
So
it,
like,
yeah.
I just say that's probably my biggest value is that being able to be around those guys and know the things that nobody really can know in terms of the locations they're going to, the things that they're doing.
And the level of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be one of them. The other thing I would say, like just in general, design inspiration for me, the majority of it comes from architecture. And so like the modernist movement got away from kind of, sorry, this is geeky stuff too, but
Huh?
got away from the, this is like post World War II with the modernist movement. And it did away, it was a group of folks that were like, hey, we want to do away with the Baroque style of architecture where they would just basically have really ornate, overly opulent, like opulence was the key. And so that was going to be what made it look fancy, was going to be all this like crazy work, but they didn't want to do the craftsmanship that we require to do it in stone or wood. They would do it in plaster, which still is craftsmanship, but like it's literally a facade.
Right.
And so this modernist movement was doing away with that and having exposed support beams, so exposing the structure of the structure of the building, where there was a level of authenticity where you could see that that's a support beam and know that that's what's holding the weight,
Right.
and appreciate it for its function. And that was the form that it took. And so there was this minimalist kind of approach to the form. So form and function balanced. And so I take a lot of design inspiration from that kind of modernist movement. That's why the harnesses and gear, it's essentially like a skeletonized thing. There's not really everything that I try to do is kind of exposed.
There's not fluff,
structural components to it. And then just kind of fashion in general. I'm kind of a dork when it comes to that kind of thing.
I would say you would never know.
So.
But I really enjoy just perusing through and like even being subscribed to some stuff on releases and stuff and just looking at what like, you know, what's coming and what's going and like visual aesthetics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Especially like colors. Like one of my favorite things is like
The
colors
Pantone.
Pantones, colors that work together and stuff. And I have 2 books and I've had multiple people ask me like, oh, what's the name of the book? And I'm like, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea because it's fucking Japanese. The whole thing's Japanese, but it has all the color codes and like different textiles and patterns that work and function together. And then you can draw inspiration from that. But that's really cool. I appreciate there's always different levels of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you know, the draw inspiration from, even though it doesn't directly, you know, apply, I guess, you know, like in terms of architecture, but you find like different visual cues that kind of like, you know, spark that, you know, kind of get that going. Because if you get like, I guess in an echo chamber where you're just looking and focusing on the same thing, you just
dry out.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to say that's
it
burnout.
Shows, it totally
100%.
Well, and the other thing I like about architecture specifically is, you know, especially like if you're talking about, it's like commercial, residential more so, is that these things are designed to be lived in.
Right.
Right. And so like,
you see every day.
Something's poorly designed, you know, then you're going to feel it, sense it, even if you don't have the education, training, experience to notice
100%.
You're going to feel it. So you're going to, living in the house is going to feel weird.
I cannot agree with you more. Like, I mean, even like, and especially in today's world where everything's cookie cutter, like pick, copy and paste neighborhoods and stuff. And like, even, I don't know if you've noticed, and I'm sure you have, because Greenville's you know, a growing city. And, you know, even around here, it's been really booming. But you'll just see like these neighborhoods that are just created within a week. And then they just literally see, I mean, it's just an eyesore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and like, I just am blown away that the fact that they actually get purchased and sold. And it's like, oh my gosh, man, like there's just nothing in it. That's just, you know, just, I don't know. It's, I say this, and this was like a thing that Buddy and I chatted and made up, and it's like a plastic, which is like, you see something very plastic and it's like very, very much fake. There's no real structure to it. It's just, you know, just not very authentic. You know, I just think of like freaking, you know, Botox filler type of like, you know, just not real.
Well, fake is a good, like it's a lack of authenticity.
Yeah.
So like, you know, design authenticity plays out in the product where, you know, like I want to have the most discerning, critical person to be able to look at my product and try to pick it apart, and then me help them understand why I designed it the way that I designed it.
The wife's home. So the dogs, this is this is like
an exciting time, everybody.
Yeah,
the dogs
this is
are freaking out.
And everyone who's listening is probably familiar, because at some point this is always when it rolls over, and then she'll pull up and then they'll all go crazy.
That was our cue.
Yeah, but I will have one question, and honestly, it may not really be for the podcast, because maybe it'll just be a personal question. We'll hold it off. But yeah, so one thing, well, fuck it. Why not? So one brand that I've sort of liked, and I thought aesthetically they've done a good job, and they've always done a really good job in terms of marketing, branding, is Peak Design. More focused on the camera side of stuff, and they've started to dabble a little bit in the outdoors, which I agree with you, where sometimes you just need to stay in your lane, and sometimes it's best to stay with what you are proficient in and not. But one thing that they've done, and for some reason it just irks me, and I don't know why, and I've talked to one person, it doesn't bother them. They think if you can do it, then fuck it and do it. And then other people who totally agree, but it's crowdfunding. Yeah. Where you are a big enough company and you are an operating company that has more than enough capital to make and create products, but then
it's cheating.
You're
cheating the system.
That to me is such a crazy concept to just absolutely crowdfund and then like, you know, completely surpass whatever your goal was. And all of a sudden you just have this immense capital.
It's created this like parasitic side industry where they are just essentially I'm probably going to be on the same page. So so like to me it's the most deceptive thing. So like if you are a startup company, there should be a requirement where you have to be a startup company. And you could look at it and say, hey, like, let me see your bank accounts before you get on here. Let me see that you have less than X amount of
Right.
capital in your bank and need to crowdfund. Do it because you need to. And what's happened so in the beginning, I thought it was awesome. I
Right.
thought it was a great way for these,
New,
entrepreneur,
innovative. Yeah,
like
absolutely.
entrepreneurial like thing where you can like live the American dream. And, like I think
Way
it
to get
started out
started.
awesome. And what ended up happening was companies inevitably
Manipulate. Yeah.
found out that you could make tons of money by just having a new release that's not currently. I mean, what requirement do you have? It just can't be currently available. Okay,
It's
so you can have a
just
tchotchke, like a keychain or something. You have a tchotchke made overseas in tens of thousands of units, and you're gonna pitch it as if it's a first time released piece of trash that you logoed and are waiting until you hit a certain amount. And if you hit this certain, you gamify it. If you hit this certain amount, then you'll also get an extra tchotchke that is
Yeah.
also something that was mass produced in China. So no, it's complete trash. I think that there can be a way to do it and do it right. And I think there should be a way to do it and do it right. I just think that, in my opinion, at this point, it should just be up to the independent company. So, like, if I'm a company, it's a startup company, let me go on, create a website, have a product idea, pay for my testing, product development, prototyping, everything, or just have a mock up of it and be like, hey guys, this is, I'm Lee with Modern
Core.
Icon. I've got this idea. I want to make a leash. I think it's gonna be the best leash in the world. It's gonna this awesome snap, whatever. We're designing it right now. But I need your help. Pre-order. Just pre-order. Like, no, so I'm 100% like, to me, if you're on those crowdfunding sites now, and I will say this without exception, you're not supposed to speak in absolutes, but I'll say this I don't know that there's a single company in any one of those platforms that is not a parasitic, a shell of a
Yeah.
startup,
Unfortunate.
not real startups.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
So, and they are probably not US based. I'm just going to say it. I think that they are using the US economy and the
Manipulating it,
US
yeah.
consumer to put money in the bank of
Very, yeah. I'm super disappointed when I've seen
other
it.
countries.
Yeah.
I won't say
Unfortunate.
exactly who, but there's a
Yeah.
whole thing called the Belt and Road Initiative, and I think that they are infiltrating the U.S.
Interesting.
Yeah, we could talk about it.
Yeah, it
offline.
was a
I don't want to
conversation
get
for another
executed
time.
here
Yeah.
while we're talking.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and kind of just tie it up, wrap it up.
Yeah.
But before, just because I find in terms of like, the concept of just everything that you've put into and like how much investment and like I said earlier, like passion is always a word I always like using. And I think sometimes it gets used too often and misused, but I've always enjoyed people who are passionate and obviously just chatting. Whenever someone starts diving in and like going
Yeah,
into all the,
geeking out, I
you
apologize.
can just tell it's
Yeah.
like, that's the passion, like
Yeah.
that someone really loves what they do and they're very much invested because at times it's backbreaking
Yeah, it's
and
not just a job.
sacrificial at that
Yeah.
point. What is something like in terms of advice that you would say or give to someone who maybe is in that forefront of like wanting
Yeah.
to do that or getting that vision? Because I think that is so paramount because I think in a lot of today's age, people are like struggling to figure out if they should just stay where they are and like, status quo or actually take a chance or like, take a chance on themselves. Cause I think that's what people really lack. I think a lot of people really just don't have faith in themselves
Yeah.
to take a step forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I would say that knowing thyself is like step one. So, a key is, are you going to be a value added to whatever community it is that you're going to hope to have an impact on? And that can look in a lot of different ways. So like, for on a designer side, graphic design, like, that you're an artist. So like if you have art and you want other people to appreciate it, then there's no limit to that. But like, I would just say this, do something that you find you're naturally passionate about and that other people would say that they also are identifying about you. So it's not just you in an echo chamber. One of the most important people in my life is actually my business partner now, when I was developing the company, and I refer to him as my no man. So make sure that you have people that are around you that are going to challenge you. And that was him for me. Like I had a lot of people that were like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome! You're doing this thing. It's
Yeah.
so cool." Instagram and IG and whatever. But like find folks that would be able to that know you and would be able to challenge you on things to make sure that what you're doing it out of conviction, because that's what's going to help you last and not like buckle at the first challenge. The other thing is, just find ways to express yourself too. So that's, to me, this is an outward expression of something that's kind of
Yeah.
inside of me. So like, find the thing that you're naturally passionate about, naturally drawn to, and really be willing to kind of sacrifice it all for it. At the end of the day, America is the greatest country in the world, and everybody has the potential to do this. There's a company that I would say is doing this that I would give a shout out
Yeah, yeah.
to. And so I got to meet him once, but he was the kind of guy that was like, hey, I was a huge fan and you really motivated. Can they hear me over the dogs?
Should be able to.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna say if you give like,
Do you need a
Yeah.
pause? I mean, this is the way that I'd want any
Yeah.
interview to go.
Yeah.
Is the sound of dogs
in the
and
background,
dogs
yeah,
in my
background
lap,
music.
and, like,
I was
this
gonna
is
say,
perfect.
like, I thought she pulled up. That must have been someone else's truck, but now that is definitely
And
her.
now
There's
she's
the
here.
garage. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
But yeah, so I would just say like, so the company's Two Dogs Canine. I think he's out of Michigan.
yeah,
But that's an example to me of how it should be done. So here's a guy who is in the canine space, who's
strangling.
who's making gear, but he's making it to the same standard that I am making it
Yeah.
to now. But like, he's doing it at a level, and he's making unique enough designs that merit him existing.
Yeah.
And he's staying true to his customer base. When I met him in person, he was like thanking me for inspiring him
That's really
to have
cool.
a business. And so that's it. So be honest and authentic. Don't just go out and copy people's stuff just because you have a sewing machine or know somebody that can sew. Your Nana it doesn't mean that you should start making nylon, whatever. It's like, you need to be able to have an honest evaluation of your capabilities and of what you have to offer, and offer that. And if you do that, then I think personally that the customer base will reward you for it. And to me, that's the level of authenticity and integrity that's required to last and to survive in, I would say, any of the tactical industry space.
Yeah.
It is, you're dealing with life and death scenarios, right? So like, anything in that tactical space is a potential life and death type of environment that you're working in. Your gear should operate in. Even the fashion stuff, it could be concealed carry. So like, your shirt should be able to,
Sure.
be able to be out of the way so that you can, pull your gun out your holster and get some shots off, right? So I just think that's, to me, that's the level of authenticity that you need to carry is key. And then it needs to be unique enough that there's a reason for you.
Identifies. Yeah.
Yeah, a reason
Stands
for you
on its
to
own merit, yeah.
exist and to do the thing that you're doing. But yeah, I would just say go after it and be willing to sacrifice everything for it if you really believe in it. Don't just do it because you're bored.
Yeah.
Do it because you want to make a difference.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. Like
Mhm.
that's the key part. Cause I
Yeah.
think, I see a lot of it sometimes is where it's like a chase for some people where
Yeah.
they just chasing a trend or it's chasing whatever running. And then it's not really, again, it kind of comes back to like the facade of being real. It's just kind of plastic. It's just kind of, and it crumbles, I
Yeah.
think pretty easily, like you said. But they're the few people that do
Mhm.
something because it's something they are invested in or passionate about, or like, it's something that, like you said, it's out of that realm, it's like,
Mhm.
they're really trying to make a difference in something. I think that's what really stands apart, and I think those are the type of companies you should reward,
Mhm.
and it's worth, spending the extra dollar on,
Totally.
if it does cost a bit
Yeah.
more, because, it is expensive to do
Yeah.
those the type of operation, and I think it's worth investing in those people because you just never know I think the people that you invest in, it's next thing
Yeah.
you know, they create something different or life changing. You just never know. It could just be right around the corner.
Totally.
So, but yeah, absolutely. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
This
thank you
is,
for having
I
me.
mean,
This
man,
is great.
absolutely. Again, like I feel there's not enough time in the day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We could geek out on so
oh
many
my
things.
gosh, man. And we chatted for a good, I think we chatted downstairs longer than the
Oh,
podcast.
yeah.
So we had it was a lot of fun and
Yeah,
always
thank
just,
you, man.
just discussing everything. And obviously again, being one of the companies that I've looked at and known even before really I started, and just recognizing like this was just such a cool, I mean, again, like I said, the name I think is just so well done and well thought out. It's, I don't know, it's just,
Thank you.
again, just love it. So it's been a pleasure. And, obviously,
Awesome, man.
Awesome to meet. Sometimes you can meet your heroes, sometimes you can meet people that you think are really cool. And then,
And they're not complete a-holes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I appreciate that. I
No, but
appreciate that.
but joking, but seriously,
Yeah, it's
but
been fun.
it's awesome to meet.
Yeah,
and
hopefully
being
come
able
back
to,
and-
yeah. Oh, dude, absolutely,
do it
yeah.
again.
So it's been awesome. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
There we go. All right, so.